We are Newsroom. Hello and welcome from Johannesburg here in South Africa. My name, of course, Ibn Jansen. The show is always live, broadcast from our studios right here in Auckland Park, here in Johannesburg. Of course, we are on air between 9 and 12 every weekday morning. That's every day of the week. Of course, you can also watch the show live on our YouTube channel anywhere in the world, and you can watch us back on demand on that self-same facility. Today, well, we ask you a question with regards to ID theft and fraud. It's well on the increase if we look at the statistics of the last couple of years here in South Africa. That's the question. Why is ID theft on the increase in South Africa? We'll ask you that, and we'll also look at varying scenarios, including you can insure yourself against ID fraud and theft. Also, what are the do's and don'ts? That throughout the rest of the show as we carry on. But first, it's Monday morning. Let's get the news headlines from Elvis Presley.
Institutions are bracing themselves for heightened protests when students arrive at campuses today. The SADC Double Troika Extraordinary Summit will today discuss the report of the Commission of Inquiry that investigated the death of the former Lesotho Army Commander Maparankwe Mahao. And Burkina Faso and Mali have agreed to work together to counter the growing threat of militants in West Africa following two deadly and well-coordinated attacks in the region. Now, those are all your headlines, but before we get to the news, let's find out from Kendall Makamate what's coming up in sports today. Very good morning to you, Kendall.
Good morning, Elvis, and thank you very much. We start off the week on a very sad note, but before I get too far into that, let me greet you at home as well. Good morning, and this is what we've got for you in the sports today.
We have lost a lot. As a family, we are very, very disappointed.
Condolences continue to pour in for road accident victims. SABC sports reporter Delisi Lingwenya and Maritzburg United midfielder Mondli Qele.
The Tennis Integrity Unit and the tennis authorities absolutely reject any suggestion that evidence of match fixing has been suppressed.
The Australian Open starts on their cloud of match-fixing allegations, even as defending champions Serena and Novak win their opening matches.
Hayden Porteous makes his breakthrough.
Hayden Porteous caps off a brilliant fortnight for South African golf as he wins the Joburg Open by 2 shots. That's what we've got for you in the sports. Be sure to stick around for that, around about 10:20 or so. Back to you, Elvis.
Thank you, Kendall. Let's now take a look at our top story this hour. Universities are bracing themselves for heightened protests when students arrive at campuses for registration today. Financial exclusions are expected to take center stage yet again. Now, the table has been laid for a fresh wave of protests. This after the old scuffle broke out last week. Several universities obtained court interdicts and some beefed up security. Some student leaders have rejected the presidential fee inquiry, which has been given 8 months to complete its work. A meeting between student leaders and the Higher Education Minister did not yield results either. Students return hoping to build on the unity forged during last year's Fees Must Fall protest, but divisions among the student groups have already emerged. Campuses countrywide will be a hotbed this week. Our South African Deputy President and Southern African Development Community Facilitator, Cyril Ramaphosa, is expected to present a report on his recent visit to Lesotho to the SADC Extraordinary Double Troika Summit scheduled for Gaborone today. The SADC facilitator for Lesotho, Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa, says that he will present a report on his last visit to Lesotho at the SADC Troika in Botswana today. The visit of December 2015 arose from a decision of the SADC organ on politics, defense and security that was held here in Johannesburg last year. SADC decided that Ramaphosa should visit Lesotho to convey SADC's concerns regarding the court challenge against the SADC Commission of Inquiry to the government of the Kingdom of Lesotho.
The objective of the meeting or the summit is to receive the report of the Commission of Inquiry. As you are aware, and the most people are aware, following the death of Brigadier Mahao, the Commission of Inquiry was appointed to investigate the circumstances surrounding the death of Brigadier Mahao. So the objective of the meeting is to receive the report.
Burkina Faso and Mali have agreed to work together to counter the growing threat of Islamic militants in West Africa. This by sharing intelligence and conducting joint security patrols following 2 deadly and well-coordinated attacks in the region.
28 people from at least 7 countries were killed at the weekend when Al-Qaeda militants seized the splendid hotel in Burkina Faso's capital, Ouagadougou. 50 others were also wounded in Friday's attack. The assault follows a similar attack in November on a luxury hotel in Mali's capital, Bamako, which killed 20 people, including foreign citizens. Burkina Faso's Prime Minister, Paul Kaba and his Malian counterpart, Modibo Keita, visited the scene of one of the terror attacks. The exact details of the cooperation between the 2 countries were not immediately clear, but the patrols and intelligence sharing mark an intent by the West African neighbors.
There's a very strong political will on the part of the 2 states to combine our efforts to fight terrorism that has now become a transnational phenomenon affecting all of our countries. And the head of state has agreed to intensify cooperation with Mali in affairs of information sharing, joint patrols, and many other fields.
For years, ISIS militants have used northern Mali as a base, but over the past year, they have staged a number of attacks in other parts of the country. Burkina Faso's authorities are now concerned that its long desert border with Mali could become a transit point for the militants.
Now that's your news for now. Yeben is standing by to take a look at the issue of ID fraud, and we'll take that theme throughout the program today. Stay tuned. It's over to you, Yeben.
Yeah, thank you very much, Elvis. Let's just look at the question that I'm asking you guys today. Why is identity theft on the increase in South Africa? And if you want to, you can also send us some examples. A little bit later, we'll talk to a couple of people that have their identity stolen, and it put them in a world of trouble. However, recent statistics provided by the Southern African Fraud Prevention Service, the SAFBS, revealed that identity fraud is well on the increase in this country, which is a concerning trend in a country where consumers rely strongly on credit. Based on the year-to-date, well, that's now the last couple of years' figures, 1,370 cases have been reported to the SAFBS as at the end of April last year. There was a 16% increase of this crime from a total of 3,327 cases in 2012 to a total of 3,873 cases in 2013. This hike is continuing, as it is estimated that the number of incidents exceeded the 4,000 mark by the end of last year. The Home Affairs Department is therefore calling on all citizens to apply for the new ID smart cards, as it's in the process of phasing out the green ID book as part of an identity security upgrade. Now, to talk to us about this concerning matter in studio this morning, we are joined by Roy Retief, who is the Operations Manager at the SAFBS, that's the Southern African Fraud Prevention Service. Very good morning to you, Roy. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
We looked at the numbers. I wanted you to ask the viewers question. Why do you think there's this, one can call it almost a big increase in ID theft and fraud here in South Africa?
Yeah, but I don't think it's just a South African problem. We're seeing trends globally where identity theft is becoming a major problem. So, you know, it's a global theme more than just a South African theme, if I could put it that way.
How does that affect consumers in your experience? You guys deal with this kind of fraud, would think, almost daily. How's it affecting people's lives?
Yeah, but it's affecting people's lives very, very badly. You'll find that there are individuals who suddenly become the proud owners, if I could call it that, of loans, vehicles, houses even, that they never knew that they had. And their good credit history is being used by fraudsters to ply their trade. So it has a major effect on people because if the legitimate client or legitimate consumer is trying to be credit active, this is obviously affecting them as well.
Yeah, and it takes you quite a long time to get out of that hole, and it's something that's very difficult to explain.
It is, definitely. But there are avenues available to consumers out there to assist them as well, and that's one of the services that our organisation does help consumers with.
On screen now we see pictures of what's happening at Home Affairs. Of course, processes there have been streamlined, and the department has now said that they are going to phase out green IDs, the document that we all grew up with, and they're now bringing in a smart card, a new smart card. How do you view this, and what kind of impact do you expect this will have?
Yeah, but look, I think it's a definite improvement, the smart cards as well as the biometric technology that goes with it. But what we must be cautious of is that criminals are very inventive, and as you're blocking one avenue for them to ply their trade, they're going to start moving to another. We've seen instances where people are no longer, or criminals are no longer so focused on stealing people's identities, but now with the controls brought in place through Home Affairs and what business is doing out there as well, they are now trying to dupe people into parting with their hard-earned money. A classic case of that was last week in the media where Eskom jobs were being offered for a fee of 1,500 Rand, and people were falling for that in this desperate climate. So one's got to be very mindful that criminal trends do move, and we've got to take cognizance of that.
Yeah, we've seen some of the concerning trends being around what's happening in the job market, jobs being offered and so forth. But at the SAFPS, what were some of the, if you can call it, some of the shocking cases that you've come across? How badly have those people been affected?
Well, Eben, the classic example, and it ties in with exactly what you're saying, we had somebody who applied for employment via an online employment bureau, provided the syndicate or the fraud syndicate with his identity details and so on, and 3 months later he had one of the vehicle financing companies knocking at his door, inquiring when he's planning to make the first payment for a luxury 4x4 worth 1.4 million Rand that he knew absolutely nothing about. Obviously, an investigation was done, and they saw where his ID was compromised and that the fraudsters had used his identity to purchase this vehicle fraudulently. And we managed to get him listed as a victim of impersonation on our internal database, but the process for him to clear his name took time and effort. But at least he's protected. If he did try and engage for any credit-related application, organisations would see that he has been a victim of impersonation, and obviously they'd need to do extra checks to see that they're dealing with a legitimate person.
We looked at the numbers earlier, and the jump's quite high every year. Has there been another big jump? Where are we standing around for the last year?
Yeah, but in fact, we've seen a slight decrease. So we saw a massive peak, 250% increase over 2009 to 2013. And now I'm talking specifically on our victims of impersonation listings that we're seeing on our side. We've seen a slight decrease at the end of 2015. And we can attribute this to, hopefully, interventions like this, that we are getting the message across in the media, like shows like this, radio interviews, print media, and various other campaigns by business out there, that people are becoming more careful with who they share their identity and personal information with. And
in conclusion, what's your advice to consumers out there? And we saw earlier that South Africans rely on credit to live day to day. That's a reality. What advice if you're compromised?
If you are compromised, we do offer a facility that we can actually protect clients or members of the public out there, which they can get more information from our website on. But the trick is not to be compromised in the first place. So I think to be very careful with who you share your information with. There's a fresh spate of emails and SMSs going around trying to elicit identity information from people. Last week I got one where somebody passed away with a very similar surname to mine, and there's an absolute fortune to inherit. I must provide them with certain details. I think the rule of thumb there is if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. So
it always is.
It always is. But just be very careful with who you share your information with. And, you know, if the public out there and consumers are aware of scams, spread it amongst the community. The more people that know about it, the more people are less likely to become victims.
Roy, fantastic. Thank you for joining us today and talking about this scourge. Don't get caught. Don't get caught. That's Roy Retief. He's the operations manager at the Southern African Fraud Prevention Service. Identity theft can really affect you quite badly. It has affected some people. Elvis is standing by with a couple of victims that are going to share their story with us. Thank you.
We'll get some personal accounts for you, but remember that we're also asking you a very important question today. That question is on your screen right now. Question that we pose to you: why do you think is identity theft on increase right here in South Africa? I would like to get your thoughts on our Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom. You can also do so on our Facebook page. Now, with identity theft on the increase, you just heard it, and it costing South African businesses in excess of 1 billion rand a year, industry players say that the criminals are ghosts, and they are seldom caught. Joining us now in studio is a victim of identity theft, Moiteri Losaba, and we're also joined by Themba Ngwenya, who had his ID fraudulently duplicated. Ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to you and welcome.
Good morning, Elvis.
Moiteri, let's start off with you. We believe that you were a victim of ID fraud and personification. How did this happen?
Well, it started in 2014. I was on my way to work and I received a notification saying that withdrawal, 316 rand was withdrawn from my account. And when I get back to work, I inquired with my bank what was the withdrawal for. And I was told I had a contract with Cell C, which I didn't have. I didn't apply for any contract. And then I contacted Cell C, inquired about that, and they told me, yes, I have a contract with them, and they delivered a Samsung phone to a person with my name, and all my details were there. My previous address, my previous work employment address was there as well.
And you had a second story as well with Nedbank.
With Nedbank, yes. The Cell C saga happened in March, and the Nedbank credit card happened in May. That's when I received a statement on my postbox with an account, a credit card account. And my immediate instinct was to phone Nedbank, inquired about that account. And I was told, yes, I applied for a credit card and I have a credit limit of 60,000 rand. And I told them I haven't applied for any a credit or anything with Nedbank. I have a bank account with FNB. I have all the credit with them. And I was told, no, the card hasn't been delivered or
issued to you.
Or issued to that person. So they informed me that they will deactivate the account, and they are aware of that because I made an affidavit at the police station that I didn't have any of those.
Now, Themba, you also had an experience. Please inform us about your experience. What happened?
Thank you for getting this chance. My story is very different from Sister said. My one is bad, and also it's hate inside. Because what happened to me, it was 2010 when I bought a car, my first car. I bought a car. When I went to register my car, I've got 4 cars under my name, of which I haven't got a car in my life. And thereafter, then I went to open a case to find out what's going on. Then I found out there's someone using my ID book, which is Mozambican guy. And thereafter, I went there to open a case. Thereafter, they told me my case has been closed, so there's no evidence about that. Then I went to Randburg police station, where they helped me. Then they tried to investigate. They found a guy. Thereafter, the guy was arrested, and then I went there to see him. And then the guy told me, he said, I never steal your ID book. What happened, I went inside Home Affairs in Pretoria. Then they said, because I'm a foreigner, they're not going to help me to give me a ID book. What they're going to do, they're going to make something there. They're going to make
a copy of an ID, South African
they said
ID.
they're going to make a plan. And thereafter, the guy paid them 700 rand. And thereafter, they gave my ID book. It was 2004 when he said. It was 2004, first time when we got my ID book. It was 2004. Then by 2010, I couldn't register my car. And thereafter, I found this guy's got 4 cars under my name. And thereafter, He's got a house, RTP house. I'm staying in the shacks. As I'm talking to you now, I'm staying in the shacks. I can't get a house because they told me I've got a house already. I've got a job at Mauritius. I couldn't go there because they need a passport. I haven't got a passport. Then I got lucky to visit in France. I couldn't go to France. I've got a house. I've got a chance to go to Cape Town to work in Cape Town. I couldn't go there
because of your identity.
Because of my identity
fraud. Now, in your case, Moiteri, did you lose your ID, or did somebody get hold of your ID? How did it happen?
I had my ID all the time. I didn't lose my ID. It was with me all the time in my bag. I always carry my ID book with me.
And this happened just and before you knew it, there was somebody that was impersonating you.
Exactly.
Now, Themba, in your case, has this been resolved? Are you talking to Home Affairs? What happened?
Yes, I've got they issue a new ID book, of which gives me a big problem now because I have to change whatever I have. As I'm talking to you now, I haven't got a driver's license because I have to do driver's license. It costs me a lot of money. I have to do a certificate for my kids. No one helped me to pay those things because it's not my fault. It's Home Affairs' fault. But no one helped me about that. So that is a situation that I'm sitting on it now. In a bad situation. I haven't got any money now. Nothing at all. Because I'm trying to patch there and there and there because I've got not enough money.
Right. Moiteri, the way forward and your advice to other people to fall victim to this, how did you get out of it?
I got into the internet and inquired about how do you get help. And I came across the organization called South African Prevention Fraudulent.
Fraud Prevention.
Yes, I think the guy was talking. Yes, and I registered my identity with them. Then from there on, I was very careful. I am careful with my bank account. I'm very careful. I need to tell people to be very careful with their belongings. If you have a statement that you don't know of, just make sure that you inquire immediately.
I'd like to thank both of you for being here this morning. Themba, your story, we're still going to see if we can investigate that and move that further because it's a very impressive story. That was Moiteri Losaba here in studio with us, as well as Themba Ngwenya, who had his ID fraudulently duplicated. You heard the stories. It's an ongoing issue in South Africa. It's on the increase. You better watch out and protect your identity at all times. We're also asking you that question, but it's over to Eben to give you more on that.
Yeah, thanks very much, Jarvis. Of course, please answer the question at SABC Newsroom. That's what we want for you. But there's also a lot of other stories happening. I can tell you, protesting contract workers under the hashtag outsourcing must fall banner. Well, they've given universities until the end of this week to address their grievances. The movement wants universities to end outsourcing of services such as cleaning and security. Let's have a look at some of the tweets with regards to this on social media today. We'll keep you updated as that story develops. There's expected to be some traction and action in the capital. How does one join this movement as there is a lot of people who are supporting outsourcing must fall? That one from Robert. Kill them with kindness. Mimi Dikobe says, I don't get people who say fees must fall, must mix with outsourcing must fall. Who pays for the fees? He asks. Sibatle says, outsourcing must fall. Our demands include permanent employment and a minimum working wage of 10,000 Rand across the board. Then Manaleri says, you know something must fall when hashtag tax university employees are paid 2,000 Rand in the name of a salary. Talking about outsourcing must fall. Now, of course, let's take a look at our picture of the day. Today's picture, well, a very beautiful but a rather shocking picture. This one comes from Jennifer Bruce, and it captions clouds of smoke from the Fisher Haven fire. Now, this is seen from the Horston Slipway. That's in the Overberg, just across the road from Hermanus. For those of you that might have traveled there over the weekend, there you look. The entire Overberg, it seems, is on fire at the moment. Quick look now at the front pages from around the globe. We'll start in New York with the International New York Times. President Obama expressed relief and happiness that several Americans who'd been detained in Iran were returning home after the completion of a nuclear agreement with Tehran. Then, in the United Kingdom, The Guardian reports that the National Health Service plans to impose its own sugar tax in hospitals as its contribution to tackling the national sugar high that is ruining more and more people's health. Then finally, in Iran, the Tehran Times says Iran and Russia have expressed their support for the United Nations' efforts to put an end to the 4.5-year crisis in Syria, warning against growing threats posed by terrorist groups. Time for us now to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk more around the issue of ID theft here in South Africa. Don't go away.
COSA, Southern Africa's leading distance learning institution, accredited, affordable and accessible management education programs, higher certificates, diplomas, undergraduate and postgraduate degrees. Register at ManCosa and be part of Southern Africa's leading private business school. Visit our website mancosa.co.za. ManCosa, management education reimagined.
I'm Peter Ndoro.
And I'm Production Chetty Miller, SAB Miller, and Hauser Bush InBev. It's something that I need to learn to say more often.
Will together produce around a third of the world's beer.
It is a mouthful. Have you ever considered skin bleaching? Nigeria tops the list of African countries with 77% of its women bleaching their skin.
Now I can see that it is not good because it affects my face and some of my body parts.
Thousands of Arab Israelis and Palestinians participated in a big rally.
Flight MH17 was shot down by a Russian-made missile.
How those chips may fall is a prediction best left to the currency of time.
That's Primetime News, Africa Journal, and Your World on SABC News.
Welcome back. You're still with Newsroom. Now, Home Affairs Minister Malisi Gigaba says the smart identification card remains the most secure form of identification ever produced. The minister was responding to a DA parliamentary question. The question was whether the department had detected any cases of fraud or corruption since the rollout of the new smart IDs in South Africa, and how and if the system could be infiltrated. The minister assured the party the cards were quite safe. Now, in light of the increase in identity theft, not just in South Africa, we heard, but worldwide, well, we are joined now by Home Affairs spokesperson Maihlome Chwete. Very good morning to you. Thanks for joining us.
Morning, and morning to your viewers.
I'm sure this is something that you guys are well on top of and very aware of. Now, the minister made the statement that I just read back in October of last year. Since then, have you had any reports of this new smart cards being cloned or actually any instances of fraud?
Well, there's been attempts, unsuccessful attempts, where we discover documents that are trying to look like the smart ID. But as the minister has said, those ones are easy to verify. Home Affairs smart ID versus someone might try create. So there hasn't been any corruption or fraud around the new smart ID. Obviously, there's still challenges with the green ID book, and those still persist. This is why we introduced the new smart ID, to try prevent the fraud that was happening with the green ID book.
How are you protecting Home Affairs from the scourge of the inside job of people on the inside of the department being or placing others at risk?
You know, we have a passionate minister and DG who are fighting passionately against issues of corruption. Earlier on last year, around May, Minister launched a campaign or operation called Visa Masina, which means clearing out the rot. And in a space of 6 months, over 30 officials were arrested for engaging in irregular or corruption activity using our offices. So we don't take it lightly, and we throw the book to people who are involved in that kind of activity in the department. The public has bestowed a great trust on Home Affairs officials, and as you've shared the stories of Temba, you can see the impact that has on somebody's life when somebody betrays that trust. So we don't take it lightly at all. In fact, we are the ones that are arguing for the courts to give harsher penalties around people who are involved in ID theft and issues of identity corruption. We don't take it lightly, and we'll continue pulling these people out of our system that are abusing our system.
Any system can be infiltrated wherever there's a human factor involved. What would you say are the challenges that you at Home Affairs are facing with this system, but also elsewhere right now?
Look, I think we should move towards a paperless Home Affairs. That's the future. And Minister Kikaba has repeatedly said that he wants Home Affairs to be the face of e-governance. Once you begin to make those steps towards e-governance, a lot of issues of corruption will be resolved. For instance, when you apply for a green ID book, you use paper and the likes, and they stay in offices and all that. But with the new Smart ID, your information is captured almost on the spot and simultaneously. So we get your information, and it goes and it's copied or kept immediately, as opposed to having papers that are kept in offices that can be manipulated.
I wanted to, we asked a question to our viewers a short while ago around, why they think. We've got one from Arnold Spoo Ladla who've come in, and he's got a scenario that is put to us. He says, I'm also a victim of ID theft or fraud. This guy is employed and blocking me from getting employment. Please assist. Do you get these kinds of complaints? And what would you tell a guy like Arnold in this case?
Yes, we do get these type of complaints, and we have tried to make ourselves the most accessible department in government, and I think we are. We have Home Affairs handles on social media so that people like that can contact them and we can look into their cases. As I've said, I get calls from people who have gone through hell as a result of ID theft.
Yeah.
So I sympathize and I truly understand what they're going through. So we don't take it lightly. Those who contact us, we try to resolve their matter as speedily as possible.
Now, just to wrap the whole thing up, tell us quickly about the role or the rollout of the Smart ID card processes. How far down the road are we, and what would be an ideal scenario for you?
Well, an ideal scenario is that we reach close to 30 million South Africans in the next 10 years. Hopefully, the partnership with the banks can bring that at that time down considerably. We introduced the new Smart ID to deal with issues like this. So when we did that, we also picked up some sort of a phenomena of people insisting to go apply for the Green ID book. So some people are still targeting the Green ID book, knowing that the Smart ID is a lot harder to have corruption around. So our responsibility is to make sure that this rollout happens at a faster rate. Currently, we have 140 offices that are doing live capture that create the Smart ID. This year, we're going to be introducing another 38 offices. So we're going to go close to 200 in terms of these live capture offices. There's a partnership with the banks that's also going to give us a bigger footprint. That is also going to introduce something called e-channel, which is applying online. Yeah. So we are looking at innovative ways that we can reach more South Africans to introduce the Smart ID, because we do think it's a far safer option than the Green ID book. And everything is being done to make sure that people get their Smart ID a lot quicker than the current pace that is happening.
Well, Mahlome, thank you for joining us today and telling us about what you guys are doing and what you should be doing if you don't want your identity to be stolen. It can cause quite a lot of mayhem in your life. Mahlome Chwete is the spokesperson for the Department of Home Affairs here in South Africa. Thank you for coming in today and putting us in the official picture Thank you once again. Yes, of course, we're dealing with identity theft today. It is on the rise locally and internationally. Consumers these days, well, they are more worried about fending off hackers than pickpockets, it seems. As consumers seek some security, identity theft insurance is growing in popularity. Must be a problem if that's the case. It is quite possible that someone can get hold of your credit card details and run up large debts in your name. Identity theft is just one of the possible scenarios in which personal liability insurance cover could come in handy. Now, some service providers have personal policy holders. Well, they enjoyed standard liability cover of up to 5 million rand. But before buying such protection, experts warn consumers should find out what the particular policy covers. The National Association of Insurance Commissioners says the typical cost of identity theft insurance ranges, and this is in dollar terms, from $25 to about 60. That's around 1,000 rand for you and me. The insurance may include credit alerts, account and credit monitoring, and reimbursement for the costs associated with repairing your credit history if you've been a victim. Very, very interesting that you can get insurance now to protect your identity. To talk a little bit more about this matter, let's go over to Elvis, who is with Kalyani Pillay from SABC.
Now, identity theft occurs when someone uses another person's personal identification information without their authorization. You heard the stories a little bit earlier. That's in order to commit fraud or other offenses such as obtaining loans, services or credit. Identity theft has cost South African businesses excess of 1 billion rand a year, we believe. The South African Banking Risk Information Centre, SABC, advises you, the consumer, to store personal and financial documentation safely and do not let your ID just lie around. Now, to talk to us about ID fraud, we are joined in studio by the CEO of the South African Banking Risk Information Centre, SABC, Kalyani Pillay. Kalyani, a very good morning to you and welcome, Ms. Pillay.
Good morning, Elvis.
First and foremostly, the festive season is just behind us. Did you see an increase in ID fraud during this period, or that was reported to the banks?
Well, a little too early probably to tell, but certainly, you know, with card fraud, it really is, if you look at it, some kind of identity theft, because you purporting to be a particular person when you're not, and you're using somebody else's card details to do transactions. So we normally see card crime, different kinds of bank crime over the festive season. So we haven't particularly seen any spike yet, but our analysis will tell in due time.
Now, if a consumer becomes a victim of such crime, how do they protect themselves and what do they need to do?
Well, you know, we say to bank clients all the time, you know, you've heard all your other guests talk about protecting your information, and I think it can't be emphasized enough. You know, people need to be mindful about where they're putting their personal information, who they're sharing it with. But I think also very important is the use of technology. You know, we all are so used to our smart devices. We're so used to working electronically these days. And so, you know, the banks continuously say to their clients, make sure that when you're communicating electronically, when you're sending emails, you're receiving emails, be very careful about what kind of mails you're responding to. Make sure that your computers have antivirus. You know, perpetrators will do whatever they can to try and source your personal information. It's not just about impersonating you, but it's more about trying to get your personal information so that they can ensure that they obtain either credit facilities on your behalf, take over your facilities, reproduce your bank cards, and then transact on your behalf. So we're saying to bank clients, you know, there's malware out there that can be used to actually solicit, pull information, you know, in terms of your electronic communications. So be very, very careful about all of that. Antivirus, absolutely important. The device that you're using, make sure that you know the computer you're using or the phone you're using to do your banking or any other transaction. You know, we say to people all the time, don't email things like your PIN number or your bank details, your ID. Don't email those things. If you need to do any banking, you need to do a transaction, you need to shop online, You know, when you go onto the website, look out for all the security features again, so that you know you're not on a spoofed website. Because when you're on a spoofed website or a fake website, you're actually giving the perpetrators all your personal information. Then you're not giving it to the people that you think you're transacting with. Again, we say when you're doing your banking, don't click on a link that takes you to your bank's website. We say this all the time, but people unfortunately still do that.
And don't go to internet cafes either.
Absolutely, don't do that. So if you want to do your banking, you know, it's great to do online banking. It's great to do your banking from the comfort of your home. Go onto the URL, type in the bank's email, the bank's website address yourself. Make sure that your computer is known to you, that it's got antivirus in it, that you're comfortable that this is a secure computer. Make sure that when you're shopping online, that you look out for all the safety features, that you're not giving your personal information to anybody else. Your PIN numbers, don't write it down anywhere. Make sure that you try and keep or set PIN numbers that are numbers that are not easy for somebody to copy,
get hold of,
you know. But personal information, don't take your utilities bill, your salary advice, if you happen to have it in hard copy. Don't just squash those things and throw it into the dustbin, or just tear it in half and throw it in. Try and shred it or burn it if you have to. You know, people, we use a term called dumpster diving, and if somebody is seriously intent on getting all your personal information, they'd even go to the extent of going into your dustbin when you put it out, you know, the night before or early in the morning for the municipal services to come and collect it, and they'll collect information from there. So, you know, be mindful of all of these things.
Now, finally, you've probably given us all the advice, but what else can you tell consumers out there, especially when it comes to their bank cards and all these type of things? What should they do? Should they not be assisted by anybody, especially when they go to an ATM as well?
Absolutely. Don't take assistance from anybody, even, and I've said this many times, you know, even if they're wearing some item of clothing that looks like they're from the bank. If you're having a problem at the ATM, go into the bank and ask for assistance. But I think, you know, the important thing is that the South African citizens need to be aware of the fact that identity theft, the fact that people are looking for personal information all the time, you know, they don't target somebody, they don't always decide who they're going to. They look for where the opportunity is. So they indiscriminately will try and source this information. So just make sure that you're always on guard. Don't think that because you've had money stolen out of your bank account that it's somebody in the bank. You know, unfortunately, bank clients tend to think that it has to be within the bank. It's possible, but that's really not what all the investigations are showing. You know, we're saying to people, be vigilant that your information can be stolen anywhere at any time. You just need to always be on guard.
Kalyani, thank you so much for once again joining us here in studio.
Pleasure,
that was Kalyani Pillay, the CEO of the South African Banking Risk Information Centre. And as she says, be vigilant all the time. Don't just thread up your information and put it into the bin without shredding it very fine. Do that and make sure that nobody gets your identity or even your PIN numbers. Well, Ibn is standing by with more.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jarvis. Several thousand hectares of vegetation and some orchards have been destroyed in a fire that started on Saturday morning in the Overberg region of the Western Cape. We brought you some of those pictures. Here's another one. You can see how it's affecting. It's the Hermanus wine route. If you were thinking of traveling in that sort of area, it will be very, very difficult to get around there. Lots of damage, of course, being caused to farmland, vegetation in general there. That's the view of what they call the Yimmelinarde Valley there in the Hermanus area. As you can see, all sorts of aircraft are being used to fight the blaze. Lots of comments and tweets on social media. Let's have a look at some of the tweets and some of the pictures that are people sending in. Kimberly Wallace talks about any relief yet with the fire in the Overberg or still burning strong? Well, smoke's still bad in the southern suburbs, though. Yes, we are told that it's still burning. Henry talks about, listen, the fire is out of control. The Overberg Incident Command have no clue. Mutual aid needs to be called. Everybody, call everybody, says Henry. I'm Ingrid Jones says, and in Overberg, arsonists deliberately started a second fire that ravaged the farms in Hohook and the Elgin area. That's, of course, as you go through Solaris Pass into Grabo as well. Very difficult terrain to fight fires in, I can tell you. There's a picture that's, that sort of looks at some of the farming valleys there in the Overberg area where that massive fire is burning. Of course, I can tell you that the smoke is even blowing all the way across the False Bay into the city of Cape Town, with smog now hanging over the mother city. After a short little break, we'll be talking to the credit ombudsman, and he's going to tell us the do's and don'ts and how do you arrest your good name if it's been compromised. Don't go away.
In Africa, technology has created many new ways of doing things.
ICT is an increasingly important part of everybody's life.
It's being used in education, for social media, and now for farming too.
The best thing about internet for a farmer is that you get to share information.
On Network, we give you all the important African technology and social media news. That's Network with Ms. Phumelele Zondi every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Central African Time, only on SABC News.
We continue with our theme of identity fraud today. The South African Deputy President and Southern African Development Community Facilitator Cyril Ramaphosa is expected to present a report on his recent visit to Lesotho to the SADC Extraordinary Double Troika Summit that was scheduled for Gaborone today. Now, for the latest on the summit, let's now cross live to a reporter in Gaborone, Botswana, Ntakwana Ngetane. Ntakwana, very good morning to you and welcome. Can you tell us what is happening there, the latest there?
Good morning, Elvis. Well, this morning is D-Day here in Botswana. Officials met over the weekend for 2 days, Saturday and Sunday. That is officials from the member states of the Troika or Double Troika countries that are coming here today. And so today we expect the heads of state and government to arrive. They will be, of course, the chairperson of SADC, President Ian Khama. Then there will be the chairperson of the organ for defense, politics and security, and that is Mozambique President Nyusi, and we expect the Prime Minister of Lesotho, Bakadi Mosisili. We understand he's already on his way here to Gaborone. We are also expecting, as you rightfully said, President Jacob Zuma to be here. He's leading the South African delegation that includes Minister of International Relations, Maitenkwana Mashabane, Minister of Defense, Nosiviwe Mapisa Ngakula, and Minister of Internal Security. Now, also we are expecting the Prime Minister of Swaziland. We're also expecting the Prime Minister of Tanzania, as well as the Foreign Minister of Zimbabwe. These are the countries that are meeting here today. And when we spoke to the Executive Secretary of SADC yesterday, Stegomina Tax, she said to us that the main objective of the summit is to receive the report of the Judge Mpapi Pumapi Commission that was instituted by SADC to investigate the death of former army commander of Lesotho, Maaparangwe Mahao. And that is expected to start here in the capital of Botswana, Gaborone, around 11 o'clock. Elvis?
Now, you did indicate that there's going to be a representative from Zimbabwe, President Robert Mugabe. Is he not going to be present?
That's right. President Mugabe is sending his foreign minister, and he has already arrived with his delegation here at the Gaborone International Convention Center. The foreign minister of Zimbabwe has already arrived. So no, President Mugabe is not coming to this meeting. But the other heads of state are coming, or the other heads of government are expected to be here. Also expected to be here, as you said in your introduction, is SADC facilitator for Lesotho, Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa. Specifically, he's expected to present a report about his visit to Lesotho in December. He was sent there by SADC because the SADC organ for defense and security had learned that there is an ongoing case that apparently is in the courts in Lesotho today as we speak. And SADC was concerned about that case that wants the commission to be quashed. And he was sent to express SADC's concern to the government of Lesotho. And he's expected to present the report of his meetings in that visit today to the SADC Troika. Elvis?
Ngatwana, thank you so much for that update. That was our reporter there, Ntakwana Ngatane, for the latest in Gaborone. Right now it's over to Yeb, and let's continue with our theme for the day when we focus on identity theft.
Thanks, Elvis. Yes, we continue in real time. Yeah, on SABC News. This, of course, Newsroom. We're dealing with the increase in identity theft. It's affecting South Africa's consumers' credit records horrifically. Consumers are often unaware that they have fallen victim to such a crime, and this, always has a severe negative knock-on effect in their ability to obtain credit in the future. Now, to talk to us a little bit more around this, Nikki Lalamoan is the credit ombudsman here in South Africa. Very good morning to you, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Morning, Evan, and morning to the viewers.
We asked our viewers, why do they think identity theft is on the increase in South Africa? We've got some views. It's a global trend, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
What are some of the interesting scenarios that you can tell us about that you've come across?
Well, talking about a global scenario, I mean, we in Africa and our neighbor Swaziland, you know, many of our retailers also have presence in Swaziland.
Yeah.
And we've had instances of duplicate mismatched profiles because of the retailers that operate there and open accounts there. People get affected in South Africa where there's just a sequencing ID number, a mistake in the number, or whatever. We've had about 3 cases across the border, Swaziland, Botswana, where, you have, and people steal IDs as well. So yes, it is a global phenomenon and it's a trend, yes.
What do you tell consumers? What must they do when they find that they've been compromised and tainted, and they need to clear their good name?
I think one of the most important things in ID fraud and ID theft is get your credit profile. You're entitled to a free credit record every year. Get your record and scrutinize your record, because from there you'll see all your credit activity.
Where does a man in the street get that?
Well, all the bureaus offer the credit report free of charge once a year. You can also get a report. There are some commercial providers that will get you a report for 25 Rand or whatever. But all you have to do, you can go onto our website to get their details, www.creditombud, or you can go to TransUnion, CompuScan, Experian, and they have a specific helpline where you can call them, verify yourself, and they'll send you your free credit profile. Once you've got it, scrutinize it. Your credit profile tells you your life. Even if I have your credit profile, I can tell you exactly about your life, where you live, what your movements are, when you last purchased, who you got accounts with. Your whole history is on your credit profile. It's important that you scrutinize it and check for inaccuracies. If you pick up an inaccuracy, tell the Bureau about it. They have 20 days to sort it out. If they don't sort it out in 20 days, you come to our office, the Credit Ombudsman. We will take up your case free of charge, fully investigate it, and clear your name with the credit provider and the Bureau.
That's what you do. What else do you do as the Credit Ombudsman to help consumers once they're through this process?
Well, we help them with their credit bureau matters, their credit information. We also help them with their general credit. You know, they may have taken open store accounts, charged interest, not getting statements. They may have been reckless lending. So we do that kind of thing. But maybe just to go down to practical tips that me and you sometimes don't look after. We don't look after our identity document.
Yes.
We take it as a piece of paper. It's probably the most important document.
Yeah.
But we hand it freely wherever we go, to licensing departments, we don't know what they're going to do. All they have to do is the photocopy of that. I have your entire details, etc. Next thing I need is a utility bill.
Yeah.
So you throw your water and lights account, you don't shred it or whatever. I pick it up, I match the two, voila, apply for credit in your name, and I make merry.
That's as simple as that.
It's as simple as that.
Now, we spoke to Home Affairs a little bit earlier. They talked that they're very happy with the smart card and security features on it. Your view on the new...
Well, certainly will go a long way to reduce ID theft and fraud, especially with all the security features. Unfortunately, our good old the green bar-coded ID was very easily duplicated, very easy to uplift the photo and put your photo there. These security features will go a long way to stemming out ID theft and also giving identities to people that qualify for it. You know, the problem with the green ID, everybody got one. I was watching your insert earlier where this Mozambican gentleman got an ID document and got a RDP house, opened account. So you see how easy it is. So safeguard your identity document, and I think with the new smart card ID, I think we'll go a long way in stemming ID fraud.
Retailers, the other side of the coin, retailers and credit providers, should they have some liability, you think, going forward?
Well, it depends if they compromise your information. In terms of the National Credit Act, if you apply for credit, you've got to provide your ID. You've got to provide a utility bill. You've got to provide all of those things. It's the manner in which they safeguard and deal with your information. Fortunately, we have the Protection of Personal Information Act in South Africa. They are obliged to safeguard your information, not share it with anybody. And any compromise thereof will be a breach, which they could pay millions for.
Fantastic. Thank you for joining us this morning. Nikki Lalamoen is the credit ombudsman here in South Africa, and we're talking about, of course, ID fraud. It is a scourge that's on the increase, not just in South Africa or on the African continent. It's a global trend, and it's something that you have to take responsibility for. You have to make sure that you are not compromised. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
Well, we'll be back at the top of the hour. That is at 10 o'clock with a complete news update. Don't go away. This is Newsroom.
Media Monitor, your weekly media news review program.
It was squashed some few months back, but obviously this is something that is going to hang around Pravin until it is actually dealt with. If he didn't know, then he wasn't doing his job.
In it, she described how the man's hair was frozen, although the man has no hair.
Is anybody volunteering to go to jail for him? That is not how the law works.
This particular matter makes us really look like a serious banana republic.
Unpacking headlines and giving analysis on topical issues. Sundays at 9 a.m. only on the SABC News channel.
Your World makes it its business every evening to round up the leading local stories and international news to keep you informed all the time.
Make a date with Your World every evening for all the news headlines around the world to keep you abreast with knowledge.
Catch Your World for headlines across the world every Monday to Friday from 9 p.m., then Saturday and Sunday from 7 p.m.
Health Talk looks into the increase of suicide and symptoms leading to suicide.
The death wish grows when you go into depression after a lot of stress.
And often when we talk about suicide, we don't talk about a person wanting to stop living, but rather wanting to stop living in pain.
After losing everything in life that lead you to no options but suicide.
I had that spirit of fear in me to say, don't even face tomorrow.
After being overwhelmed with stress and trauma, it becomes difficult to have self-control.
People learning tools and skills that will practically enable them
to meet these challenges. In trying times, never be alone. Reach out for help to a better solution.
Support should be done by a counsellor or psychologist where you're able to speak about how you're feeling in a safe, accepting, non-judgmental space.
For all your health tips, join Dr. Silo Mutawuni every Saturday from 9 till 10.
In Africa, technology has created many new ways of doing things.
ICT is an increasingly important part of everybody's life.
It's being used in education, for social media, and now for farming too.
The best thing about internet for a farmer is that you get to share information.
On Network, we give you all the important African technology and social media news. That's Network with Ms. Phumelele Zondi every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Central African Time, only on SABC News.
It's 10:00 hours Central Africa time on this Monday, the 18th of January 2016. This is Newsroom on SABC News, Channel 404. If you've just joined us, Jumbo Africa, and a very warm welcome to the second hour. I'm Elvis Preston. We'll be with you until 1200 hours, and you have to stay with us as we broadcast live from our Auckland Park studios in Johannesburg, South Africa, to the rest of the African continent. We're also streaming live on YouTube, with the entire show available on our YouTube channel. We're asking you a very important question today. Why do you think is ID fraud on the increase in South Africa? That's the question we pose to you. Let us know on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom and on our Facebook page. But first, let's take a look at your news headlines. Tertiary institutions are bracing themselves for heightened protests when students arrive at campuses today. The SADC Double Troika Extraordinary Summit will today discuss the report of the Commission of Inquiry that investigated the death of the former Lesotho Army Commander Maparankwe Mahao. And Burkina Faso and Mali have agreed to work together to counter the growing threat of militants in West Africa following two deadly and well-coordinated attacks in the region. Now, those are all your headlines, but before we get to the news, let's find out from Kendall Bakamate what's happening on the sports front. Very good morning to you once again.
Good morning, Elvis. So, we start off the week on a very sad note, but, before I get too far with it, let me also greet our viewers at home. Good morning. This is what we're starting our sports bulletin with for today.
We've lost a lot. As a family, we are very, very disappointed.
Condolences continue to pour in for road accident victims. SABC sports reporter Delisile Ngwenya and Maritzburg United midfielder Mondli Qe.
Third overall in a
The Tennis Integrity Unit and the tennis authorities absolutely reject any suggestion that evidence of match fixing has been suppressed.
And the Australian Open starts under a cloud of match-fixing allegations, even as defending champions Serena Williams and Novak Djokovic win their opening matches.
Hayden Porteous makes his breakthrough.
And Hayden Porteous caps off a brilliant fortnight for South African golf as he wins the Joburg Open by 2 shots. That's what we've got for you in the sports. I'm glad I finished it on that happy note. Back to you, Elvis.
Thank you, Kendall. Our top story now this hour. Universities are bracing themselves for heightened protest when students arrive at campuses for registration today. Financial exclusions are expected to take center stage yet again. Now, the table has been laid for a fresh wave of protest after the scuffles broke out last week. Several universities obtained court interdicts and some beefed up security. Some student leaders have rejected the presidential fee inquiry, which has been given 8 months to complete its work. A meeting between the student leaders and the Higher Education Minister did not yield results either. Students return, hoping to build on the unity that was forged during last year's Fees Must Fall protest. But divisions among student groups have already emerged. Campuses countrywide will be a hotbed this week. And we'll keep a close eye on that. Meanwhile, the Outsourcing Must Fall Committee, representing tertiary institutions and municipal workers on contract, has threatened mass action if workers' demands are not met. The movement says it will continue with unprotected strike action. Demands include a minimum wage of 10,000 rand. The University of Pretoria will remain closed for registration this week after violent protests by outsourced workers broke out last week. The Outsource Must Fall movement has since threatened with more protests at all Pretoria universities and colleges. The University of Pretoria spokesperson Anna Rita Bauer says that efforts to resolve disputes with the outsourced workers have failed. She said that online registration will continue and the institution is communicating directly with parents and students. Vandals in Senekal in the Eastern Free State have hit the town where it hurts most, in its water infrastructure. In a series of incidents, they have damaged boreholes, water tanks, and have stolen parts from the town's main pump station.
A double blow for Senekal residents. The town has run dry. Now the pump station, borehole equipment as well as cables have fallen prey to vandals. They also damaged tanks storing the scarce resource.
People are actually vandalizing those Jojo tanks, and then on Sunday we also received information that they've actually also bent one of those Jojo tanks. From those 11 boreholes, already 8 of them have been vandalized, and that is actually very bad because we are now unable to use those boreholes.
Residents are fuming.
It doesn't help because of these people stealing these machines. So we're going back instead of having a way forward.
For security personnel to be there in order to maximum security for the jojos that are being placed for water.
While good rains fell across large parts of the province on Sunday, Senekal's vandals have made it all the more difficult for the town to get back on its feet. Richard Newton, SABC News, Senekal.
The N1 between Polokwane and Mokopane in Limpopo was closed for hours following a head-on collision between a sedan and a minibus last night. 3 people were killed and 5 were rushed to hospital in a critical condition. Among those killed is a road construction worker.
It's alleged that the white sedan bumped a construction worker, killing him instantly before colliding with a minibus. The driver of the sedan and a child were killed in the collision. Few people from the minibus and 2 from the sedan were rushed to the hospital. Construction workers were setting up the closures when the accident happened. This is the second construction worker that has been killed on duty in less than 3 months.
It's a major concern for us, whether we work during the night or day. Cars are speeding, people are drunk, they just don't obey the rules. The problem during the day is that this road is so busy, we have to set up at night.
The Department of Roads and Transport is pleading with road users to obey the road rules.
Now, last week, the Independent Electoral Commission, the IEC, launched the road to the 2016 local government elections. The issue of the organization being led by a new chairman and a fairly new chief executive officer keep coming up as possible deterrents to a credible, free and fair election. Morning Live spoke to Musutu Mwepwa, the CEO of the Independent Electoral Commission, earlier.
The first registration weekend will be on Saturday the 5th and Sunday the 6th of March 2016. I think it's an important step for all South Africans who would then be able to plan to say, on that, during that weekend, there will be, one of the things they'll be doing is checking their registration details, and those that have not registered before will then have the opportunity to visit their voting station and register.
Any new technologies that are going to be introduced into these elections?
Yes, we can never go through an election without innovation in this country. We will have, for the first time, all electoral lists for candidates. Nomination lists will be submitted, or there will be an option for those to be submitted electronically. will also have an option. In the past, you could apply for special votes through email or via the internet, rather. Now you will be able to do so as well using your cell phone. You could text, your application for that purpose. We will then accept and confirm again by cell phone. And this we do because there are many South Africans who may not have access to the internet, but who do have access to a cell phone.
South Africa's Deputy President and the Southern African Development Community Facilitator, Cyril Ramaphosa, is expected to present a report on his recent visit to Lesotho to the SADC Extraordinary Double Troika Summit scheduled for Gaborone today. A visit by the SADC facilitator of December 2015 arose from a decision of the SADC organ on politics, defense and security that was held here in Johannesburg last year. SADC decided that Ramaphosa should visit Lesotho to convey SADC's concerns regarding the court challenge against the SADC Commission of Inquiry to the government of the Kingdom of Lesotho.
The of the meeting of the summit is to receive the report of the Commission of Inquiry. As you are aware, and most people are aware, following the death of Brigadier Mahao, the Commission of Inquiry was appointed to investigate the circumstances surrounding the death of Brigadier Mahao. So the objective of the meeting is to receive the report.
Burkina Faso and Mali have agreed to work together to counter the growing threat of Islamic militants in West Africa. Now this, by sharing intelligence and conducting joint security patrols following two deadly and well-coordinated attacks in the region.
Eight people from at least 7 countries were killed at the weekend when Al-Qaeda militants seized the Splendid Hotel in Burkina Faso's capital, Ouagadougou. 50 others were also wounded in Friday's attack. The assault follows a similar attack in November on a luxury hotel in Mali's capital, Bamako, which killed 20 people, including foreign citizens. Burkina Faso's Prime Minister, Paul Kaba and his Malian counterpart, Modibo Keita, visited the scene of one of the terror attacks. The exact details of the cooperation between the two countries were not immediately clear, but the patrols and intelligence sharing mark an intent by the West African neighbors.
There's a very strong political will on the part of the two states to combine our efforts to fight terrorism that has now become a transnational phenomenon affecting all of our countries. And the head of state has agreed to intensify cooperation with Mali in affairs of information sharing, joint patrols and many other fields.
For years, ISIS militants have used northern Mali as a base, but over the past year, they have staged a number of attacks in other parts of the country. Burkina Faso's authorities are now concerned that its long desert border with Mali could become a transit point for the militants.
Speaker Baleka Mbete has paid tribute to her family, the African National Congress, and the people of South Africa after being honored with the Martin Luther King Legacy Award for International Service. The MLK International Salute Committee, now in its 25th year, annually honors individuals who, through their work and sacrifice, have come to represent the ideals and the values of the late civil rights icon.
Please welcome the Honourable Baleka Mbete.
They called her an embodiment of Dr. King's legacy, just one day ahead of Martin Luther King Day Monday, which is a federal holiday in the United States.
I am a product of all the communities, friendships, good and bad experiences in small and large organizations I have been through in my journey to this moment. I have learned a lot from all of them. As Martin Luther King Jr. said, love is the only force capable of transforming an enemy into a friend.
Mbete says she never expected the award but accepted the accolade with humility.
I must say I was surprised. When you do your work, you are not doing it so somebody awards you. You just carry on doing your work. hardly notice that anyone is watching. So that someone came to the conclusion that I could be awarded took me by surprise.
The committee says it recognizes the shared struggle between South Africa and the United States.
There are a lot of similarities between South African struggle and the struggle that we as African Americans had here in the U.S. And so the speaker was honored for her work as a drum major for justice in South Africa, just as Martin Luther King Jr. did here in the U.S.
Baleka Mbete told us that being compared to the late Martin Luther King Jr. placed a huge burden on her shoulders, but one that she will continue to embrace in both her roles as National Assembly Speaker and as chairperson of the African National Congress, roles that require both the temperament and the patience that have become associated hallmarks of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Sherman Brycebees, SABC News, Washington.
Now, economists are warning consumers to tighten their belts and their budgets for the year ahead. A slew of factors will see food prices further rocket within months. Among them, inflation, a weak rand and a prolonged drought that's compromising food production in the country.
Soon, this could be an even more daunting task for most households with less rands to spend on basic goods. Let's take a look at how much more this basket of goods is going to cost. Prices have been rising consistently, but shoppers are going to feel the pinch even more.
Two major factors driving the price of food. The one is simply the drought, because farmers do not produce as much as they usually produce, especially maize. And maize is very important because maize goes into people, but it also goes into chickens, and it goes into beef, and it goes into all sorts of things. There's a second very important factor, and that's not going to affect food prices only. It's going to affect all prices in the economy, and that's the exchange rate of the currency, the rand.
Between 5 and 6 million tons of maize will be imported. This will have a direct impact on your purse. Importing maize could push up the prices of basic commodities such as beef and chicken by at least another 10%. A range of food items will be affected. In rands and cents, an extra 10% means about an extra 2 rand on this 20 rand litre of milk. The domino effect will be felt by consumers, and some believe price hikes could be even steeper.
We estimate that there would be between 20 and 30% food inflation on maize, and that affects obviously the whole value chain. So the consumers are going to have to take the brunt of this drought as well.
So a walk down these aisles will soon be an unnerving experience for most of us. This basket costs over 200 rands. Expect to pay at least another 10% more in the next coming months as prices of food increases. Nozintombi Mia, SABC News, Johannesburg.
President Jacob Zuma will lead a South African delegation of cabinet ministers and business leaders to the World Economic Forum in Davos Klosters in Switzerland from Wednesday. The WEF's annual meeting brings together world leaders from business, government, international organizations, academia and civil society in Davos to discuss the global economy.
Global investors, bankers and world leaders will converge at the Swiss resort of Davos next week for the annual World Economic Forum. And with the doom and gloom abound around the economy, government is leaving nothing to chance. President Jacob Zuma will lead a meeting with captains of industry, cabinet ministers and Reserve Bank Governor Lisetja Kganyago. They want all to use the meeting to assure global investors that South Africa is still a viable investment destination. Several major issues will be discussed at the forum, including an agenda to improve global governance through public-private cooperation by working in close collaboration with key international organizations. Participants are also expected to discuss a geosecurity agenda to convene public and private sector leaders together with the defense and intelligence experts in preparation for a changing security landscape. Meanwhile, the World Economic Forum says increasing climate change risk and the economic slowdown in China could derail growth in Africa. The forum has published its 2016 risk report in London ahead of this week's meeting.
For now, we'll take a short break and we'll be right back with your sports news and Kendall Makhamate after the break.
As stories are broken around the world, SABC makes sure you do not miss out. As the stories unfold throughout the day, News at 8 updates all newsworthy stories worldwide. Globally, we are there. Locally, we leave no story untold. Make a date with News at 8 every Saturday and Sunday on SABC News, Africa's news leader.
Good morning and welcome back. I'm Kendall Makhamati and I've got your sports on Newsroom. Our top story in this sports bulletin is about tennis. Now, world tennis has been rocked by allegations that the Games authorities have failed to deal with widespread match fixing, just as the first Grand Slam tournament of the year kicked off in Melbourne. There are allegations that 16 players ranked in the top 50 had been repeatedly flagged over suspicions that they'd thrown matches in the past decade.
It is alleged that the Tennis Integrity Unit set up to monitor illegal activities in the sport has failed to act upon information that identified suspicious behavior amongst players. All the players, including winners of Grand Slam titles, were allowed to continue competing. It is alleged that 8 of the players are playing in the Australian Open.
I think it's always disappointing when stories come out like this just before a big event because it does detract. But we are so confident that there is nothing in the sport that has been suppressed. We're confident that the Tennis Integrity Unit is doing what it can and tackles this issue very, very seriously.
The Tennis Integrity Unit investigations had resulted in sanctions against 18 players, with 6 issued life bans. Players' communication devices could also be confiscated for investigation.
However, if they don't then consent to give them, that's called non-cooperation, and they can be reported and then sanctioned for non-cooperation, in which there was a case recently when a player was sanctioned for a 2-year suspension.
Tennis officials have fought a long-running battle with match and spot fixing. Camond says tennis authorities have pumped about $14 million into anti-corruption programs. Mduduzi Ndlovu, SABC News.
Meanwhile, on the court, defending champions Serena Williams and Novak Djokovic were imperious in their dismissals of their opening round opponents. Williams, whose last completed match was in a disappointing exit from the US Open last year, dispelled any doubts about her fitness as well as her form. This after a 4-month break from the game with a 6-4, 7-5 win over Italian Camila Giorgi to reach the second round of the Australian Open. The world number 1 and defending champion will be pleased with her dominant display. Her counterpart in the men's draw, Novak Djokovic, marched on into the second round of the Australian Open with a dominant 6-3, 6-2, 6-4 victory over Chung Yun. The 28-year-old Serb looked as untroubled by the Melbourne heat as he was by the South Korean teenager in the nearly 2-hour contest, charging around the court and rattling off 40 winners.
A workmanlike performance by the five-time champ Novak Djokovic. Thoroughly deserved that victory. Just gearing into work comfortably.
Now, the South African football fraternity is in mourning following the death of Maritzburg United midfielder Mondli Qele. Qele and SABC sports journalist Delisile Ngwenya died in the early hours of yesterday morning in a car crash in Pietermaritzburg.
A soccer star on the rise, on Saturday night he netted the opening goal in a 3-all draw against Orlando Pirates at the Harry Gwala Stadium. Hours later, tragedy struck. The car Qele, Ngwenya and 2 other women were traveling in crashed into the Msunduzi River. The 2 women survived. Both were taken to hospital. One's in a stable condition, the other is critical.
We managed to extricate the driver and his passenger. It is believed that a driver of a Nissan Almera with the ND registration lost control there by Park Road and went into the river.
Their deaths have given Maritzburg United as well as the community pause. Qele made 22 appearances for the club after making his PSL debut in the 2014-2015 season.
It's awful. The boys are devastated. We are all out of words, It's a very tragic situation. It's like, we're dreaming, We're going to wake up and realize it didn't happen.
Honestly speaking, Mondli was not an individual, he was a team player, He was always jolly. You will never see Mondli sad, He wanted to, and he was reckoning his form. I mean, last day he was talking to me, telling me that, he's not a bench player and whatever. And I told him that he must work hard, So coming to your question, he was more of your team player.
To Pietermaritzburg to cover the soccer match, her family is devastated.
We have lost a lot as a family. We are very, very disappointed, but we can't say more than what God wants because we believe in God. She's been a Christian, she's been so kind, she's been loving. All of us were so much disappointed about what has happened.
The SABC has conveyed its condolences to Ngwenya's family. Police are investigating the cause of the accident. Lungisi Kumalo, SABC News, Pietermaritzburg.
The Minister of Sports and Recreation, Fikile Mbalula, has also passed his condolences for the deaths of those 2 young people. Now, Kaizer Chiefs remain in 4th place on the Absa Premiership table despite a 1-0 win over Bloemfontein Celtic. Free State Stars beat Platinum Stars 2-1 in the other league match played yesterday afternoon to move to 8th spot.
A moment of silence was observed as a mark of respect for the late Maritzburg United winger Mondli Qele before kick-off in all Absa Premiership and National First Division matches. Chiefs attacked from the word go with George Maluleka squandering an opportunity in the 11th minute, his shot missing the target. Chiefs had yet another scoring chance in the 35th minute with keeper Patrick Tinyep standing his ground. Gabadino Mango had a chance to give Celtic the lead 4 minutes into the second half, but keeper Riyad Peterse denied him. Tinyep produced a spectacular save to deny Renailo Letsolanyane a goal in the 58th minute. Chiefs were rewarded when Willard Katsande beat Tinyep from the penalty spot in the 72nd minute. In Potchefstroom, Ajax Cape Town moved to 11th position on the log following a 2-1 win over Jomo Cosmos. Zimbabwean Charlton Mashumba put Cosmos in the lead in the 3rd minute after a mix-up by an Ajax defender and keeper Ansi Jakula. Cosmos keeper Shewen Naika produced a spectacular save in the 26th minute to deny Ajax a goal. But Prince Ngumalo headed home in the 57th minute to level the score for Ajax. Musa Lebusa scored in the 76th minute to seal the win for Ajax. Pesinka to SABC News.
And so here's a summary of the weekend's actions results. We start off a little differently today with the most latest results. Cosmos 2-1 lose to Ajax Cape Town. And then Platinum Stars also losing 2-1 at home to, this time they lose to Free State Stars. Kaizer Chiefs 1-0 to beat Bloemsteltic. Hasn't moved them up from 4th position. They've stayed solid on 4th. Then on Saturday we had that fantastic draw for Maritzburg United. And unfortunately after that Gqele passed away a few hours later. But it was a 3-3 against Orlando Pirates. And then Mamelodi Sundowns 2-1 beating Ducks in their Pretoria derby, shooting Mamelodi Sundowns to the top of the log. Arrows 2-0 losing to Chipa United at home, and Polokwane City thumping and humiliating SuperSport United 4-1 at the old Peter Mokaba. First match for the weekend's action was the Wits against Black Aces, which was the top of the log clash at that time, and Wits losing 2-1 to Aces, which means that, like I said, Sundowns are now topping that log. Now we'll go through to the top half of the log, where we see Mamelodi Sundowns are sitting on 30 points. They've played 14 matches after that win against in that derby. Then Black Aces and Wits bring up number 2 and 3. Chiefs on number 4, as I just said. Arrows doing extremely well, having just come back from the NFD, and they're sitting in 5th position, 21 points after having played 14 matches, 6 wins they've had. Then Stars, Chipa United, Free State Stars bring up the rest of the top 8. We'll go through to the bottom half of the log. In the bottom half of the log, you'll see that Bloemsteltic are knocking on their door. They're sitting on 17 points. Also in 17 are SuperSport United. A -4 goal difference though. Then through to the bottom half of the log. And Maritzburg United, that draw against Pirates didn't do much for them. Seems like it's been a bit of a sad weekend for them. A -15 goal difference, 8 points, and sitting dead set in the relegation zone. Now moving on to other soccer news, which is a little overseas. Now Wayne Rooney broke an English Premier League record in Liverpool Hearts last night as he struck late in their match, and Barcelona humiliated Athletic Bilbao by 6-0 in Spain. As Zinedine Zidane proves the critics wrong, leading Real Madrid to another emphatic victory. Here are the highlights.
Mata, Fellaini, off the bar, Rooney! Scores at Anfield for the first time in more than a decade. And in so doing, sets a Premier League record for scoring more league goals for one club than any other man in history.
Corner taken by Kroos, and the header in from Bale. Gareth Bale just cannot stop scoring at the moment. Carvajal. Benzema transferred early on here to Ronaldo. What a great finish. Here's Bale. This is a masterclass.
Two penalties. How will Lionel Messi cap off his week? The world's greatest player gets Barcelona off to a flyer. Wasted pass is a self-inflicted wound. Here is Suarez. He makes the right pass. It's Neymar. It's a second for Barcelona. There is Neymar. There is Suarez. There is the goal. And who is missing Messi? From Neymar. Teases the defenders, plays it back to Rakitic, and another wonderful Barcelona goal. There's Busquets. Suarez! That's his match ball.
Okay, what we're not showing now is also Atletico Madrid's three-goal win yesterday, but more about all of that a little later. Now, 21-year-old South African Hayden Porteous has claimed his first European Tour title after winning the Joburg Open by 2 shots. Porteous finished the tournament on 18 under par after a flawless round on the east course of the Royal Johannesburg and Kensington Golf Club.
Porteous, his compatriot Zander Lombard and Englishman Anthony Wall started the day as joint leaders on 15 under par. Lombard enjoyed a great start with an impressive birdie on the par 3 second.
Look at this. Oh, how about that from Zander Lombard?
He also finished with a birdie on the final hole to ensure second place on 16 under par overall. Wall managed 2 birdies and 2 bogeys in his round and joined another South African, Justin Walters, American Daniel Im and Sweden's Bjorn Ackerson in 3rd place. But it was Porteous who, despite a shaky start, kept his cool as the chasing pack tried to turn up the heat.
He knows how important that was.
His 3 birdies was enough to keep him at the top of the leaderboard, and he claimed victory with a final round of 3 under par 69.
I've been battling with my golf for the last few months, and hats off to Garth Milner, for all the strategy and game plan, and Jim. It was a lot of sweat and tears, and I can't get over this feeling right now.
With the result, Porteous, Lombard and Wall secured their places in the field for the Open at Royal Troon in July. Liesel Zankel, SABC News.
Well, there you go. It's a Monday morning. Had a bit of an extended sports bulletin there. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, Evan Janssen standing more with more news and analysis.
Your World makes it its business every evening to round up the leading local stories and international news to keep you informed all the time.
Make a date with Your World every evening for all the news headlines around the world to keep you abreast with knowledge.
Catch Your World for headlines across the world every Monday to Friday from 9 p.m, then Saturday and Sunday from 7 p.m.
Welcome back. You're still with Newsroom. Now, South Africa has until the 15th of March to show the implementation of the agreements reached last week. Otherwise, it will face the loss of duty-free access for its agricultural products under the AGOA agreement. South Africa had been blocking the imports of U.S. meats due to concerns about disease. But veterinary experts on both sides agreed last week on measures to deal with those concerns, opening the way for the meat imports to start. Now, in studio, as always on a Monday, Chief Economist at Investment Solutions, Lesiba Motata. Lesiba, interesting this, but I wanted to talk about the turmoil in the Middle Eastern markets that we saw. Before we get into AGOA, I know you've got a lot to say about that today, but just give us a quick overview about how do you view the kind of turmoil we see in the Middle Eastern markets and what that means for the wider world.
So Middle East and East in general is becoming an epicenter of financial angst, financial fear, etc. First it was China in the beginning of the year, down 7%. Now it's the Middle East. It's because of the oil price. If you can recall that equity markets, it's a place where capital is raised for specific companies. So in a region like that of the Middle East, it will be dominated by energy-related stocks. So when oil price falls below 30, as it has, it suggests that it's potentially a structural outcome. Because now Iran, its sanctions has been lifted. In fact, now they're likely to pump much more oil into the world market. In the oil market, which means that numbers that we were looking at, $60 a barrel later on in the year, are unlikely to actually prevail. You'll find oil structurally low, and that has ramifications for those specific countries. It's not only in the stock markets that they're beginning to feel the pinch. You'll see that their governments who supports or subsidize their economies for a lot more other things because of those oil revenues have pulled back some of that expenditure or some of those subsidies into oil and into petroleum in domestic economies.
Let's talk about the AGOA agreement now, because I think the turmoil will continue. I think oil is going to drop below $20 a barrel soon, and some even talk about $10 a barrel, so that's going to cause mayhem. We'll deal with that when it happens. When we get there. When it gets there. Let's deal with what's on the table with AGOA. You've got views on AGOA, this mutual beneficial scenario.
Yeah.
Is it mutual benefit, or are we under the pump here, not just in South Africa, but the wider continent?
You know what? AGOA is worth $100 billion. In other words, trade between these sub-Saharan countries and the US is worth around that much. It has since declined after 2008 to about $50 billion. But upon looking at the detail in that AGOA agreement and the countries that benefit just in terms of sheer exports to the United States, you find countries like Nigeria, Angola, Chad, and Gabon, who, of late, since the beginning of 2000, have discovered oil reserves. Okay?
Yeah.
And what is dominating this trade? It's really oil, which is raw materials. South Africa diversifies that constituency.
So nothing has really changed in our relationship with the US. Barack Obama came here a couple of years ago and promised us that this relationship is now going to change. They're here to invest in Africa and invest in infrastructure and agriculture and all these beautiful things that he put on the table, but it seems only raw materials are still leaving the continent.
Indeed. The beneficiated products don't dominate that discussion, or just factually on the statistics. In other words, textile, machinery, even on agricultural products in South Africa, that dominates that because we've got our wine out there in the markets, we've got our agricultural products including oranges, citrus fruits,
in general.
We've got nuts, etc. So all that diversifies that constituency, but it remains a raw material agreement between the United States of America and sub-Saharan African countries.
How do we go about changing it? I know South Korea had similar problems about 10, 15 years ago when the Americans actually came to them and said, we'll no longer import TVs and electronics from you unless you take all our meat. And we kind of find ourselves over the barrel again. Is that fair comment?
It is, and I think it's a two-way thing. Incumbent countries will need to shape up and actually enhance, fast-track, expedite the process of beneficiating their own raw materials, along with a conversation with the United States that they need to nurture those products. I don't get a feeling that is the conversation that's happening. It appears the U.S. remains aloof.
Yeah.
With all its requirement, and they have one thing in mind, and that is just to still get raw materials out of Africa. I think that's problematic.
It is problematic in the long, medium, and short term, whichever way you look at it. And Barack Obama is leaving, so the outlook must be even worse for us here. Let's really talk about South Africa with India Goa framework. Are you happy with where we're sitting? What's this still going to mean for the little farmers and the big farmers here in South Africa?
Yeah, so it's all about chickens, isn't it? The only thing about this is that it's not really all about chickens, because the deal is across a broad array of products that South Africa benefits in this AGOA agreement. That's why it's not an easy one to broker. The experts, the clever people have sat down and said the U.S. meat is problematic and it has issues, but they have seemingly come to an agreement. And I could imagine those who were sitting at the table to come to an agreement and say, you know what, if I mess up here, it's not only the chicken industry that's going to be impacted, but it's everyone else, including wine. South African wine, which is making headwinds elsewhere in the globe, including the US, Europe, etc. All those things need to be all incorporated in a deal and needed to be brokered. And I think it seems like they found one. All we need to do is to make sure that which we bring into the shelves, it's healthy and without disease.
What would you tell the consumers then, people that are buy local? Should be our mantra if we go to the shops. Buy local. Make sure you buy local.
We need to always buy local. Especially when it comes to food, because South Africa has sophisticated ways of producing food, but it becomes challenging in an economically strained outcome, because you get substitution effect. People who were eating red meat will now want to eat cheaper meat. Now, if you dump cheaper chicken into the market, inevitably you're going to find people buying it just because of the economics of the situation.
Now quickly, finally, do you think with the dollar exchange rate and so forth, that chicken will still be affordable for let's call it the working classes here in South Africa and wider continent?
Now, you see, this inflation thing is going to be a problem. And it includes all the agricultural products, grains. I mean, if grains are high in terms of prices that feed into some of these animals. So it's going to be difficult. And I think it's the poorest that get the biggest brunt of this mayhem.
Isn't it always the case, Lesiba?
Yeah, it's you know, we need to protect that part of the economy. It's not good when people are going hungry and food continuously becomes expensive without no income coming through. So we just need better measures to make sure that the poorest of the poor are taken care of.
A sober view, as always, on every Monday morning we get from Lesiba Mothato, who's the chief economist, of course, at Investment Solutions here in South Africa, gives us more than just the money in the markets. Thanks for joining us, as always.
Thanks, Evan. It's always a pleasure.
We'll see you back next week, Monday, to give us another view as to how Africa's economy fit together, how the world market reacts to the oil price and so forth, and other concerns we have with the way we do business. But I can tell you that a militant group linked to Al-Qaeda has claimed responsibility for the attacks in which more than 20 people were killed and further 30 wounded in Burkina Faso. That was in Ouagadougou. If you've missed it, of course, lots of tweets coming in, lots of condolences being tweeted. Let's just have a look at what some people are saying. Jonathan Levine talks about, my heart goes out to the people of Burkina Faso. Condolences and sympathy to those innocent affected by this murderous act. We strongly condemn the cowardly and disgusting attacks on Burkina Faso. We stand with the people. We know that our strength will shine through. Then, D. Prasant Nayar says, attacking Burkina Faso hardly getting any coverage. Are we selective based on where it happens? Yeah, you should talk to Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook. Why don't they have the Burkina Faso flag superimposed on everyone's profile picture today? Then Mutombo, the poet, says, terrorists on the rise in the region. For those who are praying, kindly stop and become security guards. Public places needs beefing up. There will never be enough security if there continues to be inequality, says one of the academics here in the back of my head. Anyhow, let's take a quick look at the diary in South Africa. Let's have a look at what's happening here in the country. Start in Johannesburg, well, that's right here, where convicted murderer Andrew Strauss is expected back in the Randburg's Magistrates Court with to plead for a lesser sentence. Strauss, of course, currently serving a life sentence for the murder of Larusha Govender. Then in Bloemfontein, where former Togologo municipality senior official is expected to appear in the Bloemfontein Magistrates Court for the murder of his wife last year. Also, Port Elizabeth, the 3 women arrested for stealing a human body, they are expected to appear in the court there today. They're believed to be part of a larger criminal syndicate that uses unclaimed bodies to commit insurance fraud. Wow, scary indeed. But of course today our focus is on fraud, ID fraud and the like. Now, in light of that earlier conversation about ID fraud, shopping for groceries, clothes and other products from around the world, well, in the online spaces, it's no longer having to stand in a bank. It is clear organizations are moving their services to the online platforms. In today's connected world, people post more details than they should on social media, and they use unsecured channels to send personal information, often leaving an opportunity wide open for cyber criminals. Now, joining us in a studio today is the Academy of Computer Science and Software Engineering researcher, as well as a senior lecturer here at the University of Johannesburg, Dr. Y.C. Jung. A very good morning to you, Dr. Jung. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Statistics from UJ, that's from you guys, says South Africa loses around 5.8 billion rand annually to cybercrime. Should we be alarmed at this?
Well, I don't think we should only start being alarmed now. It's been happening for quite a while. I think the correct response should be that we should be more concerned that it is increasing and that we are not doing enough to address the issue.
What is happening? What sorts of crimes are you seeing that is really concerning, and what sort of plans do you think we need to now start putting in place?
Well, the issue is that more and more people are now coming forward and saying that they have been the victims of cybercrime. Now, it might not be, I've lost R1 million. It is the normal everyday person on the street that might have said, well, I seem to have, my details are being used to open a bank account and I'm not aware of this. So now that the world is becoming more connected, there are more everyday persons like you and I that are actually going on the web, and we're not actually sure that this is how we have to be safe. So we normally just go, oh, this is the internet, it's very convenient, I can now order pizza online, I can do whatever online, and then when I get onto the internet and it says, please enter your credit card numbers, we go, oh, sure, we'll just give you all our credit card information, without stopping and thinking, maybe this is not a legitimate business that is actually going to give us a service for the money we give.
If it sounds too good to be true, it always is. That's probably the premise we should have. But who are the most susceptible, or who are the most common targets for ID theft and other fraud activities online?
It's basically you and myself. It's everyone that is out there that doesn't know that you have to be very, very safe. When you receive an email from a friend, supposedly, with a link that says, oh, please click on this. It's a very happy bunny video. So you go, oh, that's so cute. I'm going to click on that. And it turns out that when you click on it, it doesn't take you to a happy bunny video, but it turns out it's just actually installed some malicious software on your computer, and it's now stealing your information.
Is it as simple as that? Is it as simple as clicking on one link and all your information becomes at risk?
It depends on the level of the criminal, but yes, it can. So if you click on it, it might just do that.
How simple or how difficult is it to track down someone who's hacked a website, or a person responsible for stealing information? It seems as if these people are carrying on, and it's very difficult to prosecute them or even to manage them.
Yes, it is very difficult because now that we are very much connected, the criminal that might be attacking us could be someone from across the globe.
Yeah.
So it's not like you can tell that your money gets stolen. You go to the police station, you say my money was stolen, and then they can go fly across the world and kick down the door of the criminal and say, look, you're the one that stole this person's money.
Yeah. Preventative measures globally, but specifically here in South Africa, is it updated often enough to keep criminals at bay?
There have been efforts by research organizations and security companies to push out these updates to keep up with criminals. Unfortunately, the criminals are using more advanced technologies to keep one step ahead. For example, we've got a lot of technology that advances your privacy. Now, the criminals use that exact same technology to anonymize themselves so that the police are unable to keep track of who they are or where they are located.
Now, last year in South Africa, the Cyber Crimes and Cyber Security Bill proposed was heavily criticised for being too general in its approach. Has this bill been revised? Are you aware of any revision? And what would that then mean for victims of cybercrime?
Well, they closed the period for commenting from the public, so I believe they are taking these comments into consideration when they make changes to the cyber bill. However, all that will really do is it will make it possibly easier for the state to persecute these criminals. However, you have to catch them first.
Yeah, that's the trick, especially if they're sitting well across the world in Bulgaria or some other country. It's almost impossible. Tips. Help us tips. What advice can you give to the shoppers online, and what can you do if your credentials have been compromised?
Well, if you're going to shop online, I would suggest that you go with credible online retailers. Otherwise, if you are going on these online auction sites, as you said earlier, if it's too good to be true, that deal sounds amazing, I would be very wary and make sure you see the goods before you hand over the money.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree with you more. It's almost it's almost a no-brainer, as some would say, but it's never as simple as that. Dr. Waishi Leung, thank you very much for joining us today. She's the Academy of Computer Science and Software Engineering lead at the University of Johannesburg. Thank you for joining us. Now, Of course, all of this and more, we're putting all on our Facebook page. You can interact with the information there and see how you are going to deal with it. Let's go to that page and see what's happening there on the news front. Of course, South Africa's Deputy President and the SADC facilitator, Cyril Ramaphosa, well, he'll be presenting a report on his recent visit to Lesotho to the SADC Extraordinary Double Troika Summit scheduled for today. That, of course, is sitting in Botswana, in Gaborone. Then the man accused of fatally stabbing Defence Minister Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqapula's son Chumani is due to appear in the Johannesburg Magistrates Court today. Finally, the Northern Areas Education Forum Secretary in Port Elizabeth, Richard Dry, says they will continue to prevent their children from going to school until the government addresses their concerns. And I can tell you, we'll be crossing live to Port Elizabeth at about 11:15 to get an update on the protest action that's going on in the northern areas. All of those and more on Newsroom Facebook page. You can also go to sabc.co.za/news. Well, time for us now to take a short commercial break. You're watching Newsroom here on SABC News.
Good afternoon, you're watching the Midday Report.
Lunchtime news amplified.
But for now, this is what they call home. Their hope to shift to higher ground seems to be against the tide.
Midday Report provides you with more than just news stories.
I just want Port Elizabeth to know that they own a world-class theatre.
Good afternoon, you're with the news at 1 in the headlines.
Very good afternoon to you. This is News Live. I'm Natasha Thorpe. Let's take a quick look at what's coming up in your headlines.
Good afternoon and welcome to A View from the House.
For all things news, tune in to Midday Report weekdays at 12 noon only on the SABC News channel.
The son of Africa, Trevor Noah, is leaving America in stitches.
I never dreamed that I would one day have, well, two things really, an indoor toilet and a job as host of The Daily Show.
We are the first to bring you the latest films around the globe.
Dear white people, the minimum requirement of black friends needed to not seem racist has just been raised to 2.
Cobhams Asako is a gifted blind musician, a master of soothing notes from the piano.
I love to sit behind the piano. You know, that also helps me find inspiration.
Join Refulo Mulwa every Friday for that 1-hour weekly dose of art and entertainment news at 9 p.m. on Trends.
Are you saying the king must go to jail? You are not royal blood, therefore you are going to serve time on behalf of the king. Where does the public protector stand on this matter? Are you with the marches, for the marches, against the march? If this is your ancestor, it is very much his ancestor as well, because this is the cradle of humankind. Is there God somewhere in your science? Drinking the blood of a person with albinism gives extra magical powers. A man of the cloth is involved here because it would mean that somehow religion is being brought into this part of the myth. What do you say to me?
Watch Question Time with me, Mpho Tsedu, Monday to Thursday at 5:30 p.m. on the SABC News channel.
The act of travel is an eye-opening activity that not only expands your view but is a major part of any country's economy. South Africa's spectacular scenery, friendly people and world-class infrastructure make it one of the most desired destinations in the world.
Despite tough global economic conditions, the tourism sector is steadily growing. But the idea that one has to go far in order to explore is quickly changing as the sector encourages local exploration. South Africa's history has been one of confrontation, but is now also known as one of reconciliation. World-class sites have been established to commemorate the country's past and celebrate its newfound unity. An area of tourism that is often overlooked is the question of the arts and tourism. Although many cities have not taken advantage of this element to attract international visitors, the domestic artistic tourism is fast becoming a key drawcard for local exploration. A-grade exhibition centers are creating modern spaces to showcase what makes up the African expression. A good dose of creative capital is playing a major role as entrepreneurs create new and exciting ways to sell their products, thus creating new vibrant local spaces that are changing the face of our communities. South Africa has earmarked tourism as a key sector with excellent potential for growth, and a vast amount is being poured into changing the face of our spaces, making them vibrant, urban, and exciting.
I'm Peter Ngo. And I'm production Chetty Miller, SAB Miller, and Hauser-Busch InBev. It's something that I need to learn to say more often.
Will together produce around a third of the world's beer.
It is a mouthful.
Have you ever considered skin bleaching? Nigeria tops the list of African countries with 77% of its women bleaching their skin.
Now I can see that it is not good because it affects my face and some of my body parts.
Thousands of Arab Israelis and Palestinians participated in a big rally.
Flight MH17 was shot down by a Russian-made missile.
How those chips may fall is a prediction best left to the currency of time.
That's Primetime News, Africa Journal, and Your World on SABC News.
It's 1100 hours Central Africa time on this Monday, the 18th of January 2016. This is Newsroom on SABC News Channel 404. If you've just joined us, Jumbo Africa, and a very warm welcome to the final hour. I'm Elvis Preston, and we will be with you until 12 o'clock. You have to stay with us as we broadcast live from our Auckland Park studios in Johannesburg, South Africa, to the rest of the African continent. We're also streaming live on YouTube with the entire show available on our YouTube channel. On our question of the day, we ask you, why is ID fraud on the increase in South Africa? Let us know on our Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom and on our Facebook page. But first, let's take a look at your news headlines. Tertiary institutions are bracing themselves for heightened protests when students arrive at campuses today. The SADC Double Troika Extraordinary Summit will today discuss the report of the Commission of Inquiry that investigated the death of former Lesotho Army Commander Mapurankwe Mahao. And Burkina Faso and Mali have agreed to work together to counter the growing threat of militants in West Africa following two deadly and well-coordinated attacks in the region. Now, those are your news headlines, but before we get to the news, let's find out from Kendall what's happening on the sports front. Very good morning.
Good morning, Elvis. Thank you very much, and a hearty good morning to our viewers at home as well. This is what we've got for you in the sports today.
We've lost a lot as a family. We are very, very disappointed.
Condolences continue to pour in for road accident victims, SABC sports reporter Delisi Lengwenya and Maritzburg United midfielder Mondli Qele.
The Tennis Integrity Unit and the tennis authorities absolutely reject any suggestion that evidence of match fixing has been suppressed.
The Australian Open starts under a cloud of match-fixing allegations, even as defending champions Serena Williams and Novak Djokovic win their opening matches.
Hayden Porteous makes his breakthrough.
Hayden Porteous caps off a brilliant fortnight for South African golf as he wins the Joburg Open by 2 shots. Be sure to stick around for the sports bulletin at 11:30. Back to you now, Atlas.
Thank you, Kendall. Top story this hour and breaking news. The Department of Higher Education and Training is clamping down on several bogus colleges in the Johannesburg CBD. As the 2015 matriculants grapple with accessing higher education, some have fallen victim to these bogus colleges. Now, we'll get some update from that event that's taking place in the CBD currently with our reporter Griselda Lewis in a short while, as soon as we can get hold of her to give us the latest update that's happening there. They're closing some of these bogus colleges in the CBD. So stay tuned right here on your favorite channel. That's Newsroom, and your favorite channel of choice, of course, SABC News on Channel 404. Now, universities are bracing themselves for heightened protests when students arrive at campuses for registration today. Financial exclusions are expected to take center stage yet again. The table has been laid for a fresh wave of protest after the odd scuffle broke out last week. Several universities obtained court interdicts and some beefed up their security. Some student leaders have rejected the presidential fee inquiry, which has been given 8 months to complete its work. A meeting between the student leaders and the Higher Education Minister did not yield any results either. Students return, hoping to build on the unity that was forged during the last year's Fees Must Fall protest, but divisions among the student groups have already emerged. Campuses countrywide will be a hotbed this week, and we'll keep you posted as that unravel. Meanwhile, the Outsourcing Must Fall Committee, representing tertiary institutions and municipal workers on contract, has threatened mass action if the workers' demands are not met. The movement says it will continue with unprotected strike action. Demands include a minimum wage of 10,000 rand. The University of Pretoria will remain closed for registration this week after violent protests by outsourced workers broke out last week. The Outsource Must Fall movement has since threatened with more protests at all Pretoria universities and colleges. The University of Pretoria spokesperson, Anna Rita Bowers, says that efforts to resolve disputes with outsourced workers have failed. She says online registration will continue and the institution is communicating directly with the parents and the students. The N1 between Polokwane and Mokopane in Limpopo was closed for hours following a head-on collision between a sedan and a minibus last night. 3 people were killed and 5 were rushed to hospital in critical condition. Among those killed is a road construction worker.
It's alleged that the white sedan bumped a construction worker, killing him instantly before colliding with a minibus. The driver of the sedan and a child were killed in the collision. Few people from the minibus and 2 from the sedan were rushed to the hospital. Construction workers were setting up the closures when the accident happened. This is the second construction worker that has been killed on duty in less than 3 months.
It's a major concern for us, whether we work during the night or day. Cars are speeding, people are drunk, they just don't obey the rules. The problem during the day is that this road is so busy, we have to set up at night.
The Department of Roads and Transport is pleading with road users to obey the road rules.
The Department of Correctional Services has confirmed that the Abatembu King, Buyelekaya Dalinkebo, has been readmitted at a private hospital in East London. Last week, the King was admitted to St. Dominic's Hospital for dehydration after he refused food. Now, he is serving 12 years for arson, culpable homicide and defeating the ends of justice. The Eastern Cape Regional Communications Manager, Zama Feni, says that Dalinyebo was rushed to the hospital yesterday. Feni says the King was discharged from the St. Dominic's Hospital on Friday afternoon, but he was again admitted to the East London private hospital yesterday morning after his health conditions deteriorated again. South African Deputy President and Southern African Development Community Facilitator Cyril Ramaphosa is expected to present the report on his recent visit to Lesotho to the SADC Extraordinary Double Troika Summit scheduled for Gaborone today. A visit by the SADC facilitator in December 2015 arose from a decision of the SADC organ on politics, defense and security that was held in Johannesburg last year. SADC decided that Ramaphosa should visit Lesotho to convey SADC's concerns regarding the court challenge against the SADC Commission of Inquiry to the government of the Kingdom of Lesotho. Burkina Faso and Mali have agreed to work together to counter the growing threat of Islamic militants in West Africa. Now this by sharing intelligence and conducting joint security patrols following two deadly and well-coordinated attacks in the region.
From at least 7 countries were killed at the weekend when Al-Qaeda militants seized the Splendid Hotel in Burkina Faso's capital, Ouagadougou. 50 others were also wounded in Friday's attack. The assault follows a similar attack in November on a luxury hotel in Mali's capital, Bamako, which killed 20 people, including foreign citizens. Burkina Faso's Prime Minister, Paul Kaba and his Malian counterpart, Modibo Keita, visited the scene of one of the terror attacks. The exact details of the cooperation between the two countries were not immediately clear, but the patrols and intelligence sharing mark an intent by the West African neighbors.
There's a very strong political will on the part of the two states to combine our efforts to fight terrorism that has now become a transnational phenomenon affecting all of our countries. And the head of state has agreed to intensify cooperation with Mali in affairs of information sharing, joint patrols and many other fields.
For years, ISIS militants have used northern Mali as a base, but over the past year, they have staged a number of attacks in other parts of the country. Burkina Faso's authorities are now concerned that its long desert border with Mali could become a transit point for the militants.
And coming back home, the Department of Higher Education and Training is clamping down on several bogus colleges in the Johannesburg CBD. Now, as the 2015 matriculants grapple with accessing higher education, some have fallen victim to these bogus colleges. As promised earlier, for more on this, let's now cross live to our reporter Griselda Lewis, who is standing by in Braamfontein. Griselda, very good morning to you, and can you tell us what is happening there?
Well, a very good morning to you, Elvis. Yes, as you rightfully point out, is that the Department of Higher Education and Training is embarking on a campaign here in the Johannesburg CBD in Braamfontein, to be precise, to educate some of those who would want to register at institutions of higher learning to ensure that those institutions are accredited with the necessary institutions, including the Department of Higher Education and Training. I can tell you this morning already 6 bogus colleges have already been identified in the Johannesburg CBD. Of course, you would recall that last year the Department of Higher Education and Training managed to close down about 10 of those institutions. Now, judging from the statistics that the Department of Higher Education and Training has given us over the past few years, it clearly does show that Gauteng is the province, the highest province in terms of faring with these bogus colleges. Of course, as you'd know, those matriculants who are still jostling for space are desperate for higher education. So these bogus colleges and those who are running them are certainly taking advantage of that desperation. So this stall here behind me has been set up, and anyone who's willing to come and check if an institution has been registered can come and check here at downtown Johannesburg in Braamfontein, to be precise, here at 66 Jorrison Place, to check if the institution that they want to pursue their studies at, it has been accredited. Often what you would find, Elvis, is that you'd find
I would like to apologize for the quality of the pictures there, and of course, as you can see, it was breaking up, but Griselda Lewis bringing us that update of the campaign happening in the CBD of Johannesburg by closing all these bogus colleges and universities, they call themselves, in central CBD, and don't fall victim to that. We know it's a new school year, so don't fall victim to that as well. Well, we'll take a short break, and we'll be right back after that.
Media Monitor, your weekly media news review program.
It was squashed some few months back, but obviously this is something that is going to hang around Pravin until it is actually dealt with. If he didn't know, then he wasn't doing his job.
In it, she described how the man's hair was frozen, although the man has no hair.
Is anybody volunteering to go to jail for him? That is not how the law works.
This particular matter makes us really look like a serious banana republic.
Unpacking headlines and giving analysis on topical issues. Sundays at 9 a.m. only on the SABC News Channel.
For us to shift our focus now to, well, what is kind of happening around the country here in South Africa. Now, the Outsourcing Must Fall Committee, representing tertiary institutions and municipal workers on contract, has threatened mass action if workers' demands are not met. Workers at the University of Pretoria, UNISA and the Tshwane University of Technology, well, they plan to intensify their actions this week. The leader of the Workers' and Socialist Party, Mametwe Sibai, says their demands must be met by the end of this week. Now, to give us a sense of what's been happening in the capital around student protests, we are joined in our Pretoria studio by Offense Stimo. Very good morning, Offense. Nice to talk to you again.
Morning. How are you, sir?
Offense, just give us the latest update. I understand that there were ultimatums set last week, but what's the latest in the capital with regards to Outsourcing Must Fall?
From the reports that we've been having from the University of Pretoria, that's where there's been intensified action. Police presence has been intensified, and there's some workers there who have gathered. So the situation is actually very tense at the University of Pretoria. We also received some correspondence from UNISA. The spokesperson of UNISA actually informed us to say that all operations that were affected last week by the protest action by disgruntled workers and the students, most of the services have been restored, and students are now encouraged to actually go and finish their registration. At the Tshwane University of Technology, as you remember, some examinations were actually deferred last year due to some protest action and intimidation. I spoke to the spokesperson this morning, Vela Director, who actually confirmed that there are some examinations that are still proceeding at the South Campus in Soshanguve and the North Campus in Soshanguve, and also in Pretoria West, where some of the examinations are being written.
Now, in the recent past, Offense, we've seen that the protests in the capital have had a real violent edge to them, especially around Soshanguve. We know the students aren't back in the capital yet. They're expected back in a couple of weeks. How do you see, or what do you think the next week will look like then in the capital with regards to these protests?
The situation is very tense, and it's also very unpredictable. As you know, the EFF Student Command are the ones spearheading the student protest, especially at UNISA. And they have explained that the court interdict that was received by UNISA on Friday, they will not abide by it, as they feel that UNISA is actually negotiating in bad faith. They've put their demands on the table to say that some of the contract workers are supposed to be taken in full-time and should receive a 10,000 Rand salary, including the benefits. But they felt that the step that was taken by most of the institutions of higher learning was negotiating in bad faith to actually run to the courts and receive a court interdict preventing some of the protest action from taking place. So going forward, we expect that there will be a lot of protest action taking place defying the court interdict that was actually received by most of the institutions of higher learning on Friday. So we are going to monitor the situation, keep our ear on the ground, and see where exactly most of the action is taking place. Because mostly last week, we saw most protest action and disruptions mostly centered at UNISA, in Sunnyside, most of the two campuses in Sunnyside. That's where most disruptions were actually seen, where we saw some of the workers who were working, and some of the protesters were calling them amagundwane, as they were not actually taking part in some of the protest action. They were actually forced outside on Thursday, and then the march proceeded to the University of Pretoria, where the same attempt was made to try and force out some of the non-striking workers, but that action was received by gunfire, where police opened fire with rubber bullets to the protesters. So we're just going to monitor and see how the situation goes. It's not predictable at all.
Yeah, the one thing that's predictable is that it's been totally unpredictable until now. Let's talk quickly about the demands that's on the table. 10,000 Rand for each worker is what outsourcing must fall demands. Is that feasible? And also, where are the let's call it the average wage? Where is it at now?
According to the spokesperson at UNISA, there is an inquiry that has been formed to try and insource most of their workers at UNISA. And the process is underway, and they've also denied reports that the process has been put aside by the institution. So the process is going to take place for the next 6 months. So we'll see following 6 months as to which workers will actually be incorporated into the institution. As you can remember, that the protest action that is taking place now, it's actually unprotected. So that on its own, it warrants for most of the workers that are at UNISA to be fired. So how that will be handled will be actually very tricky as to how the institution will take the matter going forward. And we spoke to Nehau, which also explained that the process is also underway at some of the institutions across the country, and in fact in the Western Cape, some of the workers have actually been insourced into the institution. So as to whether it's feasible, according to UNISA spokesperson, he actually confirmed that yes, most of the workers are going to be insourced. But some of the demands as to whether those that have been retrenched and those that have been fired recently or suspended due to taking part in this protest action, it's not clear whether they will be reinstated, because there were reports of 200 security guards who belong to a company called Red Alert who had been suspended for taking part in the protest actions at UNISA. So we'll just see the future for them as to what will transpire.
Now, UNISA itself is shut at the moment. Is that still the case? And do we see the other institutions being totally shut down as well?
The one that I can definitely confirm this morning that it's still shut down is the University of Pretoria. But UNISA, we received correspondence to say that all the services have been restored, registration and everything else. If you want to go to inquire as to maybe you want to register there, you can go. Actually, the services have been reinstated. Tshwane University of Technology, they have also confirmed that the exams that were deferred last year, they are now continuing this year. So it seems it's only tax, as it's affectionately known by the locals here, or University of Pretoria, that's currently affected by the protest action, because we heard that police presence has actually been intensified there, and there are some workers who are actually gathering outside the institution.
Offensive, thank you very much for that update. That's our reporter in the capital, Offensive Stimo. He's telling us that, the capital's on tenterhooks. They don't really know what to expect with this protest. It's unpredictable. What will happen next? They'll keep us updated as to how things develop around the nation's capital. With regards to fees must fall, and then now outsourcing must fall, is also causing some consternation now. We move on. The National Speaker, Baleka Mbete, has paid tribute to her family, the ANC and the people of South Africa, after being honoured with the Martin Luther King Legacy Award for International Service. The MLK International Salute Committee, now in its 25th year, annually honours individuals who, through their work and sacrifice, have come to represent the ideals and values of the late civil rights icon.
Please welcome the Honourable Baleka Mbete.
They called her an embodiment of Dr. King's legacy, just one day ahead of Martin Luther King Day Monday, which is a federal holiday in the United States.
I am a product of all the communities, friendships, good and bad experiences in small and large organizations I have been through in my journey to this moment. I have learned a lot from all of them, As Martin Luther King Jr. said, love is the only force capable of transforming an enemy into a friend.
Mbete says she never expected the award but accepted the accolade with humility.
I must say I was surprised. You know, when you do your work, you are not doing it so somebody awards you. You just carry on doing your work. You hardly notice that anyone is watching. So that someone came to the conclusion that I could be awarded took me by surprise.
The committee says it recognizes the shared struggle between South Africa and the United States.
There are a lot of similarities between South African struggle and the struggle that we as African Americans had here in the U.S. And so the speaker was honored for her work as a drum major for justice in South Africa, just as Martin Luther King Jr. did here in the U.S.
Baleka Mbete told us that being compared to the late Martin Luther King Jr. placed a huge burden on her shoulders, but one that she will continue to embrace in both her roles as National Assembly Speaker and as chairperson of the African National Congress, roles that require both the temperament and the patience that have become associated hallmarks of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Sherman Brycebees, SABC News, Washington.
Now to a story that, well, everyone thought it was going to be a hotbed this morning, but angry Northern Area's parents in Port Elizabeth, whose children are enrolled in 52 schools across Port Elizabeth, well, they've closed down schools again there today. The parents say that schools will remain closed until their demands are met by the Department of Education. The shutdown follows a series of protests by parents and pupils last year, where violent protests were held with parents demanding the appointment of teachers in schools which are understaffed. Now, our reporter, Lerato Tipa, she was going to join us live. She's at one of the schools, but due to technical difficulty, she can't join us. She's joining us on the line. A very good morning to you, Lerato. Thanks for joining us. Lerato, just give us a quick update. What's the latest situation in the northern areas there?
We are currently standing outside the Department of Education, where the northern area education firm, together with the Port Elizabeth education firm, and their stakeholders, unfortunately, as well as
sorry, Lerato, the line is absolutely horrific. We simply can't broadcast that. It's not acceptable. There, of course, is our question of the day. Why is identity theft on the increase here in South Africa? We've been asking you. We've had lots of interaction around, lots of comments, and also lots of guests telling us what you should not be doing. You should not be frivolous with your identity document. That's a simple one. Well, we can't seem to get Lerato up this morning. We've tried all the technologies possible. Unfortunately, it's not going to happen. So we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, Elvis will have a little bit more.
Defied family and traditions to follow her dream.
Decided that I'm going to prove to them that they were wrong.
The first breakthrough came in when she was studying and touring in Europe.
That was my first breakthrough.
Generations was her first television debut in South Africa.
It was my first gig. I was very excited. I was very happy. I said, yeah, this is confirmation I'm at the right place.
After pain, rejection, and suffering, her dream became a reality.
I followed my path, and I'm happy and grateful and blessed.
Join your host, Wileng Mulabati, on Rupilong every Friday at 17:30.
Didier Drogba, a footballer from Ivory Coast, was named as the third most influential celebrity in Africa.
Where I saw him display, he's a very nice player. He always make an impact.
Drogba donated his $5 million endorsement fee to the construction of a hospital in Abidjan.
Well, there are some lesser-known football stars in the continent that you haven't met.
Really?
And are deserving of more attention.
I think we will do better.
The Journal, every Saturday at 1:30 on SABC News.
Welcome back. I'm Kendall Makamat and I've got your sports on Newsroom. Our top story in the sports world today is world tennis has been rocked by allegations that the game's authorities have failed to deal with widespread match fixing just as the first Grand Slam tournament of the year kicked off in Melbourne. The allegations that 16 players ranked in the top 50 had been repeatedly flagged over suspicions that they'd thrown matches in the past decade.
It is alleged that the Tennis Integrity Unit set up to monitor illegal activities in the sport has failed to act upon information that identified suspicious behavior amongst players. All the players, including winners of Grand Slam titles, were allowed to continue competing. It is alleged that 8 of the players are playing in the Australian Open.
I think it's always disappointing when stories come out like this just before a big event because it does detract. But we are so confident that there is nothing in the sport that has been suppressed. We're confident that the Tennis Integrity Unit is doing what it can and tackles this issue very, very seriously.
The Tennis Integrity Unit investigations had resulted in sanctions against 18 players, with 6 issued life bans. Players' communication devices could also be confiscated for investigation.
However, if they don't then consent to give them, that's called non-cooperation, and they can be reported and then sanctioned for non-cooperation, in which there was a case recently when a player was sanctioned for a 2-year suspension.
Tennis officials have fought a long-running battle with match and spot fixing. Cameron says tennis authorities have pumped about $14 million into anti-corruption programs. Mduduzi Ndlovu, SABC News.
Now, defending Australian Open champions Serena Williams and Novak Djokovic have announced their presence in the year's opening Grand Slam of the season. Williams overcame a spirited effort from Italy's Camilla Giorgi, while Djokovic upended South Korea's Hyun Chung.
While the tennis fraternity is still reeling from the allegations of match fixing in the sport, it was business as usual at Melbourne Park. In her first competitive match in 4 months, Williams had to dig deep against a determined Giorgi. The American pulled out of the Hopman Cup in Perth earlier this month with a knee injury, but she showed no sign of discomfort against the Italian, claiming the opening set 6-4. Giorgi, ranked 36th in the world, put up more of a resistance with her solid forehand in the second set, but she conceded the decisive break in the 11th game with a double fault. And Williams made no mistake, sealing a 6-4, 7-5 victory. Denmark's Caroline Wozniacki became the first high-seeded casualty in the tournament. The 16-seed cruised through the first set, but was eventually outclassed by Kazakhstan's Yulia Putintseva 1-6, 7-6 and 6-4. Serbia's Djokovic was in sublime form in his opening encounter against Korean teenager Hyun Chung. The world number 51 was just no match for the top seed, who dictated proceedings to notch up a comfortable 6-3, 6-2, 6-4 victory. Samantha Mari, SABC News.
Now, here's a quick summary of the ABSA Premiership Weekend's actions results for those that are interested in finding out, which is most of us. I know, as you can see right there, we've got, starting on yesterday, the latest results, Cosmos are losing 2-1 to Ajax Cape Town. Platinum Stars losing by the same score to Free State Stars, both at home. And Kaizer Chiefs beating Bloem Celtic 1-0. Good enough to keep Chiefs in 4th position. And the day before, on Saturday, Maritzburg United 3-all against Orlando Pirates. That particular score is bittersweet for Maritzburg United because it's still sitting stock last, but worse than that is they lost one of their players who died in that tragic car accident. This is Pele on Sunday morning. Mamelodi Sundowns beating University of Pretoria 2-1 in that well-covered derby, that Pretoria derby. Golden Arrows winning 2-0 to Chipa United, and Polokwane City humiliating SuperSport United at Old winning 4-1 there. And then the first match of the weekend was a clash of the top of the log at that time between Wits and Aces. Black Aces coming out 2-1 winners out at Wits. We have a quick look at the log standing, starting at the top. Sundowns are 30 points, leading the log, 13 goal difference. They've won 9, drawn 3, lost 2. Whereas Black Aces and Wits, they've very similar, but they're sitting number 2 and number 3, 30 points for Aces and 29 for Wits. Chiefs, as I said, sitting on 4th, 25 points. Then Arrows, Platinum Stars and Chipa United bringing up the rest of the top 8 with Free State Stars just sneaking in there, go through to the bottom half of the PSL log. As you can see, Celtic knocking on that door. SuperSport United on 17 points as well. Pirates in 11th position. They've moved up a little bit since the last time we checked. Ajax Cape Town 12th, and then right at the bottom, as you can see, University of Pretoria and Maritzburg United bring up the rear. Maritzburg United, like I said, it's been a bittersweet weekend for them. To draw the Pirates and lose an important player. Now, moving on to other sports news, the Proteas were soundly beaten for the second time in 3 test matches against touring England. Both times, the Stars have come from the opposition. A new team is under construction, we've been told. But is this all what is wrong with the Proteas? Kolele Sochilelo, who's just spent a weekend commentating at the Wanderers, joins us on his unexpected day off to talk about this.
Yeah, it's an unexpected day off, but it's good to be at home, you know, looking at what has unfolded in this test series as a whole, you know. We speak of the Proteas losing 2 test matches in this series so far, but you have to go as far as Bangladesh, you know, where they failed to register a test match win. And it's a concern at the moment. They haven't won a test match in over a year now, something rare when it comes to the Proteas, especially a team that was so balanced in the past 2 to 3 years. Yes, there are some players who have left the team, but Cricket South Africa knew this was going to happen at some point. But to speak of the current team at the moment, there are some uncertain players, some uncertain roles, more especially the captaincy one that has played a bit of a role in some of the players, particularly the younger players. I mean, it's unheard of, especially in South Africa, to lose a test captain during a series, especially when you're playing against England. And being the England side that they are at the moment on the rise, you know, after having won the Ashes last year, you will come short.
And also, having said that, also the incumbent captain saying he's not sure if he's going to stay with Test cricket for much longer. It's up in the air. Yeah, must have done a lot to actually shake the mindset of the younger players. Let's talk a little bit about the batting, because that's been the one thing that stood out throughout. What is going on in the batting department?
You have to start right at the top, you know, the gap that has been left, you know. It's a role that has always been settled when it comes to the Test squad. When you look at Graham Smith and Alvira Peterson, Graham Smith, Mackenzie, Graham Smith, Putta Tipanar, Graham Smith, Gary Kirsten, and all the ones that he's batted with. And in recent times, we've had Dean Alga, who's looked the part, I must say. I'm very impressed with him. He's a fighter, he's a gutsy player. But at the other end, you've got Stian van Zyl, but we all know that when it comes to domestic cricket, he's one who's, you know, he's played his part, he's got the runs, he's played in every condition in South Africa, represented the SAA squad, and he's scored the runs. But it's clear that there's a huge gap between domestic cricket and international cricket. And at the beginning of this series, he was always playing for a spot in the team. And the way he got out at the Wanderers just proved how uncertain he is at the moment, and his ability that goes undoubtedly, because we know he's a player who's capable of scoring runs, but just those little prods that he goes at outside off stump, which is where he found himself wanting. And you look further down in that middle order, which is also a concern at the moment. Faf du Plessis failed at the Wanderers.
He's been failing for some time. In fact, I'm glad you're bringing Faf up, because he's been a bit of a liability recently.
I think, Kendall, now is the time to speak of certain players. For a very long time now, we've been speaking of the team. We can't expect Hashim Amla, Dale Steyn, and A.B. de Villiers, Vernon Philander to carry the team always, you know. You've got to look at individuals, and it's unfortunate that a series loss will always come with casualties. And at the moment, those are the 2 players who in my opinion, are uncertain in the team, more especially when it comes to their duties of scoring runs. But then you look as far as the bowling attack, you know, South Africa are inexperienced when it comes to that. Morne Morkel being the only one with over 20 test wickets at the moment. If you look at the starting lineup that went into the Wenner's team, Harris Viljoen, yes, he picked up that 1 wicket of Alistair Cook, which was a bit of a bad ball going down leg, finding an edge. Beautiful catch down the wicket by Dane Villas. But Chris Morris himself is finding his feet when it comes to international cricket. Kagiso Rabada, superb work that he did at his home ground, picking up 5 wickets. But if you look at that whole bowling attack, it's inexperienced, and their next test series is against Australia in 6 months' time. A lot to work on between now and then, but you can expect a lot of changes.
Yeah, and why does Kyle Abbott keep getting dropped? They've given, we'll talk about the batting department, and the Stiaan van Zyls get a lot of chances. But Kyle Abbott seems to be the very first guy to get dropped if there's someone to drop in the bowling department. Why is that? He's the only one who really could have changed the lengths, isn't he?
One thing Cricket South Africa always had, particularly when you look at the test squad, they always had a pecking order, 5 men who were waiting on the fringes. At the moment, they seem to be trying this, trying that, trying this, trying that. It's good to be trying that, but I don't think this is the right time to be doing that, particularly because they're going through a transition. But if you look at Kyle Abbott, we know if you don't have Vernon Philander in the team, you're more than likely to have a player like Kyle Abbott, who, if you're going at 4 and over, can bring down the run rate at certain times. He has been injured of late, but he was available to play at the Wanderers. But I think the idea was to give Harris Viljoen, who picked up a couple of wickets in the Sunfall Series match, played at the Wanderers. And if you look at his performance in that Wanderers Test match, there are a lot of questions to be answered.
Why has the coach not come under any scrutiny, Russell Domingo?
Kendall, it's a tough one. It's a tough one, particularly last year, having lost the World Cup in a semi-final, going out to New Zealand. And for me, that's where things started going wrong for the Proteas, selection-wise, and backroom staff. Russell Domingo, sometimes he tries this, he tries that with the help of the selectors. You must also remember that there's a new selection panel now in Mr. Zondi, who's part of the convener of selectors. So there's a lot of uncertainty in that whole Cricket South Africa group when it comes to the players, the captaincy, the coaching staff, the selectors. There's a lot that's going on. But Russell Domingo at the moment, he's also under a lot of pressure, especially going into the T20 World Cup in March.
With that said, because we talk rugby. If the Springbok team does not do well, we have a look and see what the coach is up to. We talk about football. If the Bafana not doing well, we have a look and see what's happening with Bafana's coach. With cricket, it seems as if we've always stayed away from the backroom staff. Yes, the players are not doing well. The batting lineup is not up to scratch. Maybe the bowling strategy in this particular test, they were just banging them in and not going full length or not varying the lengths, really. Why are we not talking about what it is that the backroom staff is doing in terms of their strategies and sort of how they're building up this team to be competitive going forward?
I think because when you look at cricket, yes, it's a team sport, but on its own, it's an individual sport. It's about what the individual brings to the team and what the individual does on the day. If you look at A.B. de Villiers, what he does in that ODI team and the T20 squad and the Test team and Dale Steyn. But there are certainly some individuals right at this moment who are feeling it, who are feeling the heat, who are short of runs, who are short of wickets, and there are players knocking on the door. And for me, at the moment, it's going to filter down to domestic cricket, where some of the players are going to feel like, it's easy for me to make a test debut now. If I go one season where I'm scoring runs and getting wickets, I'll get a test run. Gone are the days where players now needed to go and fight hard, and that hunger, is slowly but surely dying from the domestic players. And if you look at the performances in the Sunfield series at the moment, players are scoring runs. Stephen Cook is scoring runs, he's scoring hundreds, and soon, Cricket South Africa at the moment is also contradicting themselves. They're speaking of age, but if you look at a guy like Mone van Wyk, who made a return in the T20 squad last year at 36, but there's no room for Stephen Cook scoring runs at the moment. I don't know.
And he's younger. Here's a quick one. We've got about 30 to 45 seconds, all right? How fast can you reel off your Proteas 11, Test 11?
Oh, at the moment, it's an easy one. If you look at the top two, I'd give Stephen Cook, I think it's about time. Stephen Cook, you've got Dean Alga. Number 3, Hashim Amla. Number 4, A.B. de Villiers. Number 5, which is also a tricky one, I'll give it to Themba Bavuma. Number 6, I'll bring in J.P. Dumini again. Number 7, I'd have to Quinton de Kock. This is a trick one. Number 8, he's impressed me, hasn't picked up the wickets, but I've got Chris Morris at number 8 as our all-rounder. Number 9, if he's fit, Dale Steyn. Number 10, if he's fit, Vernon Philander. Number 11, I'll have Mone Morkel.
Now, okay,
But then again,
both Steyn and Morkel, both Steyn and Philander have not been available. Replace them for me.
I'll replace Philander with Kagiso Rabada.
With Rabada?
Because you've got the swing option with Chris Morris.
No Abbott?
At the moment, look, we are in desperate need of that all-rounder, so that's where Chris Morris tips Carl Abbott over selection at the moment, in my selection. But for me, Kagiso Rabada is slowly but surely making himself a nuisance in that team because he was coming in as a replacement. Now it's going to be pretty tricky to replace him.
He stamped his authority on it. Thank you so much, Xolele. We really do appreciate your insider's knowledge, and we hope that the next test they do better.
Hopefully.
All right. Xolele Sochilelwa, cricket commentator, giving us his Proteas Test 11 and giving us the lowdown on what's happening with the Proteas. Now on to other sports stories. 21-year-old South African Hayden Porteous has claimed his first European Tour title after winning the Joburg Open by 2 shots. Porteous finished the tournament on 18 under par after a flawless round on the east course of the Royal Johannesburg and Kensington Golf Club.
Porteous, his compatriot Sander Lombard and Englishman Anthony Wall started the day as joint leaders on 15 under par. Lombard enjoyed a great start with an impressive birdie on the par 3 second.
Look at this. Oh, how about that from Sander Lombard?
He also finished with a birdie on the final hole to ensure second place on 16 under par overall. Wall managed 2 birdies and 2 bogeys in his round and joined another South African, Justin Walters, American Daniel Im and Sweden's Bjorn Ackerson in 3rd place. But it was Porteous who, despite a shaky start, kept his cool as the chasing pack tried to turn up the heat.
He knows how important that was.
His 3 birdies was enough to keep him at the top of the leaderboard, and he claimed victory with a final round of 3 under par 69.
I've been battling with my golf for the last few months, and hats off to Garth Milner, for all the strategy and game plan, and Jim. It was a lot of sweat and tears, and I can't get over this feeling right now.
With the result, Porteous, Lombard and Wall secured their places in the field for the Open at Royal Troon in July. Liesel Zankel, SABC News.
And that, unfortunately, is where we're going to have to leave it with the sports. Up next, the weather across the continent.
There we go. Welcome back. Now, South African cricket. Before we go, South African cricketer Aaron Pangisa, they say his future hangs in the balance after a story this week that he was barred from a flight for allegedly being drunk and misbehaving. Weekend report that happened three months ago. Wasn't that the case?
Yeah, it's a little late to be bringing this up as like breaking news, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, that's what you call sensationalism, isn't it?
It's a lot of conspiracy theories doing the round on social media. Just let's have a look at a couple of tweets that people are saying with regards to him. It's a bit rich to say that his career hangs in the balance. I mean, Charlotte talks about, hey, they will always doubt him. Hence, I'm saying Pangisa was not alone. He was with his teammates. Who are they? It's a scenario of being inebriated on a flight. This Pangisa thing is a farce. Happened 3 months ago, and the fact that it's only surfacing now should tell you a lot.
Absolutely, I agree with that. In fact, Elvis, you'll also remember that other players get protected. Why is he not being protected?
Listen to this one.
Kweza says,
talk about
this Aaron Pangisa story is nothing but a shift of focus by the CSA. They want us to forget about the dismissal or the dismal Proteas and the Bodie match fixing. Now, that's a story that people are talking about all the time, isn't it?
Yeah, match fixing seems to be on everyone's mind at the moment. Guys are match fixing in tennis, cricket. Can go on. Football.
I think this calls for something special this week.
Yeah, no, I think we're going to have a look at it. We're going to have to speak to quite a few stakeholders. We're busy planning a show dealing with unethical behaviour in sport. We'll try and do that a little bit later in the week. But Kendall, it's something that's really concerning, isn't it?
Absolutely. Since last year, it's been hitting every single sport in court, and it's not good.
Proteas lost the other day, to me, smelled like a rat.
Don't go down that road. Just give us the live tweets, of course. Today we ask you the question around ID theft in South Africa. Yes. Rante Volhitter says...
Organised crime involving banks is misappropriation of clients' documents and digital signatures.
Now this one here at the bottom from Vincent Sandile says, if one has their ID stolen or misplaced, what should one do? Now that means, Sandile, that you have not followed the conversation this morning.
But you can catch it on
Lots
YouTube.
of tips. You can catch it on YouTube. Go onto YouTube and you can find all the advice from all the experts that we interviewed today that can give you some advice on what to do if you lost your ID, what to do next. And I think the first thing that you should do is to report it to the police.
And then go to the Credit Ombudsman website and they'll kind of take you through the steps, what you should do and what you should not do. So, pretty simple.
Yeah, we'd like to just greet our American visitors all the way from California, from Calais.
There they are. We've got a group in here today.
Hey.
Hi, guys.
We hope you enjoy your stay here in sunny South Africa. This is a wonderful place. We got 5 countries in one, I promise you.
That's the word today. We're going to have to wrap it now. Of course, at the top of the hour, you've got business news update and more news. Don't go away. You've been watching Newsroom. We're back tomorrow, same time, same place.
Cheerio. Ciao for now. Arrivederci.
Ligamos.
As stories are broken around the world, SABC makes sure you do not miss out. As the stories unfold throughout the day, News at 8 updates all newsworthy stories worldwide. Globally, we are there. Locally, we leave no story untold. Make a date with News at 8 every Saturday and Sunday on SABC News, Africa's news leader.